for members to vote on this motion. But the motion, however, seeks to have the House resolve that the government, through the Ministry of Education, develop a policy on standardization and production of school uniforms in the country. The motion will be put to question this morning on the floor of the National Assembly House. The motion by Honorable Thaddeus Nzambia on the continuous registration of beneficiaries to the Older Persons Cash Transfer Program in the country is also lined up for a debate. And its debate this morning will be a resumption of a debate that was interrupted on the Wednesday of March 1st, the year 2023, in the morning sitting. And of course, we understand that this motion also has had its fair share of debate at the floor of the House. Members have debated on this motion, and time that is remaining that is allocated to this bill, to this motion, is 13 minutes. So resumption of this bill, or resumption of debate on this bill, will be done in 13 minutes, which is the balance of time that had been allocated to the debate on this motion. And the move of this motion seeks to have the House resolve that the national government, through the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection, undertakes continuous and timely registration of elderly persons under the Older Persons Cash Transfer Program. The motion by the Honourable Member for Dagoretti North, Honourable Beatrice Elachi, on the policy formulation on implementation and enhancement of EPZ programs in the country is also lined up for a debate on the floor of the House this morning. Again, the motion by Honorable Jane Kagiri on the reduction of cost of electricity will also see members debate on that motion. There is also the motion by Honorable Geoffrey Ruku on the development of a policy and funding for junior secondary schools, a motion that seeks to have the House resolve on a number of issues, including urgently develop a comprehensive junior secondary school policy in order to regularize and anchor the guidelines under the Basic Education Act. And as you can see in the chambers, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Gladys Boss, is in the chambers. She will be presiding over this morning sitting. I will now hand you over for this live broadcast brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. Good morning.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. I direct that we ring the bell for 10 minutes. Yeah, come to you on the schedule.
Well, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Gladys Boss, has just directed that the quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes. Of course, this is according to the House standing orders that at the commencement of the House, if the requisite number of members in the chambers has not been achieved, then a quorum bell can be rung for 10 minutes to enable members who are yet to get into the chambers to be able to walk into the chambers, to enable the House achieve its requisite quorum, and thereafter allow the House commence its business. So for now, what you are seeing is that members are walking in. There is the member for Kaloleni, Honorable Paul Katana, has stepped into the chambers, of course, being followed by members. Members are expected to be seated in the House, and once the quorum is achieved, then the House can commence its business. Pursuant to Standing Order 42A, sabbatical A, a number of members will this morning ask questions for reply before the specified committees. The member for Tiati, Honorable Kasait Kamket, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Climate Change and Forestry to explain whether the ministry has plans to conduct the planned recruitment of the Kenya Forest Service Rangers, KFS, at the sub-county level. The member will also be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Climate Change and Forestry to explain measures put in place by the ministry to curb intra-county marginalization during the recruitment of the Kenya Forest Service Rangers, particularly in cosmopolitan counties, to enhance equity. These questions by the member for Tiati will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining. The member for Kitui West, Honorable Edith Nyenze, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum to explain why for every purchase of prepaid electricity tokens, nearly 62% of the purchase amount is charged as taxes and other levies, leaving consumers with only an estimated 37.8% for tokens. Also, the member will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum whether there are any measures that the ministry has put in place to address taxes levied on electricity charges in order to ensure the power necessary to spur economic growth remains affordable to consumers. And these two questions by the Honorable Member for Kitui West will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Energy. Again, the member for Mwea, Honorable Mary Maingi, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock Development whether she could provide details on the status of implementation and specify the timelines within which the ministry intends to revive Mwea cotton ginnery following legalization of commercial cultivation of genetically modified pest-resistant, commonly referred to as BT cotton variety, in 2019 after trials at the Kenya Agricultural Livestock Research Organization, KALRO, Center in Mwea. The member for Mwea will also be raising a question to the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock Development, seeking to know what steps the ministry has taken to ensure that when the ginnery begins active production, locals of Mwea constituency will directly benefit in terms of employment opportunities and corporate social responsibility CSR initiatives. These two questions by the Honorable Member for Mwea will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. This morning, also the member for Laisamis, Honorable Joseph Lekuton, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration whether he could provide details on the circumstances surrounding an incident that occurred on April 2nd, the year 2022, where 2 chiefs and 4 other residents were killed by bandits in Salmate area in Logololo location, while in the process of recovering livestock that had been raided by bandits from the neighboring constituencies. The member will also be seeking the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration to highlight any steps that the government has taken to ensure that the culprits of the heinous act are apprehended. The member will also be seeking the Cabinet Secretary to indicate what measures, if any. All right, the Sergeant at Arms has indicated that the quorum has been achieved, even as members continue to trickle in. I will now hand you over for this live broadcast that is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Kamche Menza. Good morning.
Okay, we may proceed.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, March 8th, 2023, morning sitting. Also remembering that today is Women's Day, I want to pass my congratulatory message and wish the women of this country a beautiful day. Report 1. Report of the Auditor General on Ziwa Technical Training Institute for the year ended 30th June 2019 and 30th June 2020 and certificates therein. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2021 and certificates therein. Ziwa Technical Training Institute, Witness Protection Agency, Staff Motor Car Loan Scheme Fund, Public Procurement Regulatory Authority, Policy Holders Compensation Fund, Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation, Petroleum Training Levy Fund, National Research Fund, Council of Governors, Kenya National Innovation Agency, Kenya, Kenya Trade Networks Agency, KenTrade, Simlaw Seeds Company, Uganda Limited, and Moi Tech Teaching and Referral Hospital. 3. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2022 and certificates therein. The Kenya Power and Lighting Company, KPLC, Coordination of Population Policy Implementation Project, UNFPA, KEN 09P0P, National Council for Population and Development, Kenya Institutional Strengthening Project Phase 7, number UNEP, Kenya SEV/86/INS/64 project, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Affordable Housing Finance Project, IDA credit number 8958-KE, the National Treasury. Dwelling of Magongo Road, A109L Phase 2, FIDIC EPC, turnkey-based, Kenya National Highways Authority, the National Intelligence Service, State Department for Trade and Enterprise Development, Northern Corridor Rehabilitation Program Phase 3, Kenya National Highway Authority, Portrees Mombasa International Airport Access C110 Road, FIDIC EPC Turnkey Road Project, Kenya National Highways Authority, And lastly, Nuno Modogashe Road Project, Kenya National Highways Authority. And 4, County Government's Budget Implementation Review Report for the first half of the financial year 2022-2023. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I think there's another report. Buyer for Leader of Majority, I think there's another report. The Honorable Samuel Chepkonga, Chairperson, Delegated Legislation.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 8th March 2023, report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the draft Salaries and Remuneration Commission, Remuneration and Benefits of State and Other Public Officers, Regulations 2022. Thank you, Speaker.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Oh, Chair Delegated, do you have a notice of motion? Yeah, okay. Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to move the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the draft Salaries and Remuneration Commission, Remuneration and Benefits of State and Other Public Officers, Regulations 2022, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 8th March 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 26, Subsection 2 of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Act 2011, rejects the draft Salaries and Remuneration Commission, Remuneration and Benefits of State and Other Public Officers, Regulation 2022. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
The Honorable Member for Tiati, Honorable Kasait Kamket. Yes, what's your point of order?
Closing the floor.
You are not excused the mic. Honorable Speaker, I think it's important for us to maintain the tradition of this House. The member for Kuminini is crossing the floor without, following the procedure, moving this side and the other side at will, and he has to go. So it's important for us to inform the monos that it's they want to go back to the bar, then they come back.
I believe he'll confirm that he's duly informed and educated. You can confirm on his behalf? Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to ask the following question. The Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. Number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain whether the Ministry has plans to conduct the planned recruitment of Kenya Forest Service Rangers at the sub-county level? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain measures put in place by the Ministry to curb intra-county marginalization during the recruitment of the Kenya Forest Service Rangers, particularly in cosmopolitan counties, to enhance equity? Madam Speaker, can I say a word that the recruitment is happening today, and those of us who come from cosmopolitan counties, the distance, Madam Speaker, from Lokis to Cabernet is more than 600 kilometers. And we don't expect hustlers coming from Lokis to Cabernet to be able to reach and get a fair chance to be recruited. So this is a very, and there is no public transport. Somebody has to hire a motorbike up to Chemolingot, which is almost another 300 kilometers to get to Cabernet. It's a very, I wish you could intervene and make some orders, because this is a bit urgent, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Kamket, I think this will be referred to the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining, but they can be requested to take it as an urgent matter as they have a meeting tomorrow. The Honorable Member for Kitui West, Honorable Edith Nyenze, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not ready for the question right now, so it can pass. I was not aware. Thank you.
I think you can give her a copy.
Not well later. Oh, it's okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm sorry for that. I want to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, question number 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain why for every purchase of repaid electricity tokens, nearly 62% of the purchase amount is charged as taxes and other levies, leaving consumers with only an estimated 37.8% for tokens? Part 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to address taxes levied on electricity charges in order to ensure the power necessary to spur economic growth remains affordable to consumers? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Kitui West, Honorable Edith Nyenze. Your question will be referred to the Departmental Committee on Energy. Next, we have the question number 23 of 2023 by the member for Mwea, Honorable Mary Maingi, is hereby deferred to a later date, as she had other duties today. Thank you. We can now move to the next one. The Honorable Member for Laisamis, Honorable Joseph Lekuton. Your question? Okay, he's not here. Maybe the whip can help us. He might be around, and he can always pick his question from the table here. The next is the Honorable Member for Wundanyi, Honorable Danson Mwashoko. Your question?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand to ask a question number 025 of 2023 to the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the steps being taken to contain wild animals in Savo East and Savo West National Parks in Taita Taveta County within the parks, and end invasion of human settlements in Kishushe, Mlilo, Paranga, Marungu, Mwaroko, Sagala, Kasigau, Mbololo, Ndii, Ngolia, and Mabomani in Voi, Landi, Ronge, Mwatate, Bura, Mkuki, and Makitau, and Salaita, Tangini, Njoro, Mata, Okungu, Kachero, Jipe, and Mkwajuni. 2, confirm, could the Cabinet Secretary confirm whether the electric fence around the park is working and when the sections without an electric fence will be fenced. 3, could the Cabinet Secretary consider an alternative interventions to wildlife invasion in Taita Taveta, like a dedicated helicopter and hiring of youths from within the county to provide immediate response to wildlife invasion as game rangers and scouts, given that given the long turnaround time taken by KWS officers to respond to wildlife invasion. 4, could the Cabinet Secretary list watering points in the Savo East and Savo West national parks, including the state of Aruba Dam, and steps being taken to ensure that the dam continues to provide water to the animals within the parks? 5, could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of the number of claims arising from wildlife attacks in Taita Taveta County in the last 7 years? How many have been submitted? How many have been approved? And how many have been paid? And when the pending claims will be paid? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Wundanyi. Your question is now to be replied before the Departmental Committee on Tourism and Wildlife. And as I can see that the member for Laisamis, I thought I had seen him around, and since he has not arrived, the Honorable Joseph Lekuton, his question is number 24 of 2023, is hereby deferred to a later date. Yes, your point of order.
Honorable Speaker, it's tradition for Parliament that when a member lists a question to be asked, needs to make himself or herself available in Parliament the earliest to ensure that the question is read. If we continue on this trend, Madam Speaker, we're going to lose what Parliament stands for order. It stands for records. It stands for many things that are orderly. Now, I am sure just because these two questions were put here, there are other two members whose questions were not put here because they occupy space. But then now we have members whose questions are here in the order paper. Someone else would have used the opportunity to ask the question, but then they do not come to the chamber. Neither do they write to the Speaker to say why they are not here. I think the tradition is if you cannot ask your question, you write to the Speaker and say, on this day I will not be here, and therefore my question be deferred, so that another question be put. But as Speaker, if you defer a question for which a person has not requested, then I think what you need to do is drop the question so that members would learn to be here when they request for questions. But questions that no one has requested for to be deferred should not be deferred. It should be dropped so that we create space and that people take parliamentary business serious. On Wednesday, it is members' business. It is question time. They have to be here. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Malemba Mwalimu. Give him the mic.
Thank you very much. On Speaker, in the same wavelength, there was also a tradition where the members would be informed when they have questions. And I remember in the 12th Parliament, it was very consistent that whenever you had a question, and I want to congratulate the table room, it was very consistent on telling you that your question will be coming. So possibly that's also another alternative way that we should enhance, as I support what the leader has said, that the House business must be taken serious. For instance, on Speaker, you remember when we were in Mombasa during the conference that we had, members, especially the members who were joining Parliament for the first time, were on their feet complaining that they don't get space to talk in Parliament. And now you realize that we don't have them in the House, and this should go on record. You realize that it's difficult. A few minutes ago, we have just been looking for quorum. So indeed, Parliament requires a lot of discipline, and I'm telling you. So you have to come early, sit, insert your card for you to speak. So let's improve on discipline. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
What's your point of order, Honorable Professor Owundo, Honorable?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It's a good day, it's a good moment that the issue has been raised by Honorable Baya on the attendance of members in the National Assembly on the plenary. Many afternoons, Honorable Speaker, towards 3 or towards 4 or 5, the House is literally empty. Literally empty. We have 349 members, and it is telling that out of the 349 members, at times so shameful, national TV, you only find a sprinkle of members here and there. And yet they saw the first-timers who keep on complaining all over. They are never given an opportunity to talk. It is telling they are never here. Yesterday, Honorable Speaker, in the afternoon, the Speaker on the chair, Honorable Kaluma, had to literally find innovative ways of buying time because there were never members to contribute towards very important memo, like the one from the President, very important issues that were on the floor of the House. It's my rallying call to the new MPs, especially the young ones. This is the time to hog the limelight. When probably before things start heating up with government-sponsored the bills and the rest of the thing. Take opportunity like now. Come at around 4:30 or 5, when people probably who want to hog limelight have gone, and stamp your authority and talk here. Because whoever monitors Mzalendo does not monitor whether you're talking prime time or another time. That's my free advice to them. If you want to be rated highly among the people contributing in Parliament, like I did myself and Dr. Pokose last time, you look at the appropriate time to talk. Don't wait at 2:30 or that time. That is reserved for the House leadership. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Members, for your contribution on that issue. I just want to allow me to say this so that we're not prejudicing a member. The member from where Honorable Mary Maingi had actually sent a letter deferring, except that the letter came in late and it wasn't removed from the order paper. General member from Lysamis, it's a great distance. So I think I agree with all the sentiments, but I think we are also saying that the table office always the endeavor to actually inform the members. Their biggest challenge, I've been informed, is that sometimes the contacts the member has left are not reliable. So you need to have a reliable contact because they will always try to inform you. And as, okay, the last point, okay, your point of order, Honorable Kose.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know today is International Women's Day, and I want to appreciate all the women. Just on that, Madam Speaker, we get on our SMS, we get messages on what is coming in the next day. And in it, I think people are not reading their SMSs, because we should not just say that the table office should send individual SMS to the member who has because when you read your message for the sitting for tomorrow, it is actually captured there, and you will be able to know that your question is coming for putting. So I think that when a member is not here, it could be other challenges, and to make it such that members must be able to appear in the House, then I think it is important that if the member is not there to prosecute the question, then that question should be dropped so that the member starts another process.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I think I would like to recognize the presence of Bristol Girls School from Juja constituency, Kiambu County. I also wish to recognize Ruthagati High School from Madeira West in Nyeri County. I also recognize in the public gallery Grand Star Junior Academy from Embakasi West constituency, Nairobi County. Okay, we go to the next order.
Order number 8, motion, development of policy on standardization and production of school uniforms in the country. Question to be put.
Yeah. We have the number. Okay. Honorable members, I now put the question that aware that the school uniform, which is a variety of standardized clothing worn by students in educational institutions, creating homogeneity among students irrespective of their sexual status or fashion preference. Further aware that school uniforms keep students focused on education, not clothes, reducing peer pressure and bullying and enhancing school pride, unity and community spirit as they go a long way in contributing to, it goes a long way in contributing to students' sense of belonging to their school population, and appreciating that in the Kenyan education system, schools across the country, whether private or public, require students to wear school uniforms in order to be allowed to attend classes. Concerned that the cost of uniforms has continued to escalate, becoming prohibitively expensive for the poorest within the community, with some schools demanding that parents pay uniform money to specific school accounts, and move that locks out many children whose parents cannot afford the expensive uniforms listed by schools. Now, therefore, this House resolved that the government, through the Ministry of Education, develops a policy on standardization and production of school uniforms in this country. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 9, the Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 56 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Penal Code. Order number 10, the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 62 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015 and for connected purposes. Order number 11, the Public Service Internship Bill, National Assembly Bill number 63 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to make provisions for internship of college and university graduates in the public sector, to provide for hands-on training and acquisition of skills by graduates, and for connected purposes. Order number 12, motion, continuous registration of beneficiaries to the Older Persons Cash Transfer Program in the country.
Honorable members, the Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 56 of 2022 by the Honorable David Gikaria MP will be referred to the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. The Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 62 of 2022 by the Honorable Benjamin Gadhiru shall be referred to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. And the Public Service Internship Bill, National Assembly Bill number 63 of 2022 by the Honorable Naisula Lesuda will be referred to the Departmental Committee on Labor. On motion number 12, on the continuous registration of beneficiaries of older people, there was about a balance of 13 minutes. The member for Narok North was on the floor. Are they here to complete their time? She has left. Then she forfeits. We can allow other members to speak. Okay. think let's call the mover. Was there a member who wanted to have the 3 minutes? Let's go. Okay. You may proceed. You can use the mic in front. Please give him the mic. There's a member on his feet. Yes, you have the mic now.
Yeah, I think I'll take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Member for Kilome, Honorable Zambia, for this timely motion on the elderly persons. That is the continuous registration for elderly persons for the cash transfers. The cash transfers for the elderly person was first muted, I think, around 2007 in this country. Initially, it started with 3 counties, that is Thika, Nyando, and Busia. But now it's expanded and become a countrywide thing, which is a good thing. These elderly persons are people who have served this country in many capacities, either as farmers, as leaders, as chiefs, as teachers, or as they've served this country. But after retirement, most of them find themselves in extreme poverty. Some of them don't even afford food. Some of them don't afford health services, and therefore it's a good thing for these elderly persons' cash transfers to continue. And we had targeted 4.4 million Kenyans to have been registered by now, but unfortunately, because of lack of that continuous registration of these elderly persons, we have now reached only 852,000 elderly persons. And the last time this registration was done was in 2016. And that is why this motion is very timely. It is very much welcome, so that we can pass it and have a continuous registration of elderly persons. And remember, the population of this elderly person is also increasing every year, because luckily, because of our improved healthcare, not many people are dying now. People are living to a very late age, and therefore this continuous registration is a very good thing, so that we can support these elderly persons to be able to meet their health care, to be able to buy food for themselves, and to be able to meet some of the other needs. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I now call upon the mover to reply. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before I reply, there are some requests. I have 10 minutes, and it's good I give the members to at least have a say on the debate. I will start with my brother there, Oundo. Then let me prepare the list as Oundo takes on. At least a minute each.
Okay, the Honorable Oundo.
Give me the names, full names. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand in solidarity and support by the motion by Honorable Zambia on the issue of the elderly people. As my colleagues have aptly put it, the last registration was just done before the 2017 elections in order to entice the older people to vote for the then Jubilee government. Honorable Speaker, the elderly people in the villages are suffering, and the suffering is unsurmountable. I therefore ask Honorable Speaker that the national government moves with speed to make adequate allocation to this program and ensure every person who is 65 years old and age over must get this kind of transfer, to let them live their old age in dignity, because they have served this country, they have lived in this country, they deserve something better. During the campaigns, our party leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, had promised every vulnerable person 6,000 per month, unconditionally. And those Kenyans are now suffering because they are...
The Honorable Joseph Imathe, Turkana Central. Or Zambia to Honorable Nziamba? Okay. Give us the list, please. Announce it. You can announce it from your seat, but it's okay.
Oh, I can kick from the mic.
Yeah, you could have announced it from your seat.
Oh, then I can go and read the names.
It's okay, let me just.
This is my mind. Kajiado. My mind.
From? Kajiado.
Kajiado. Na kuna Kasungu Nganze.
Okay. Honorable Mai from Kajiado. You may proceed. Let him have the mic.
Good morning. My name is
Just tell him to say the name.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this motion by Honorable Zambia. This is a great motion that really deserve support to help out the elderly people and making sure that they are taken care of, and we continue registration. Because, for example, in my constituency, I've had a lot of elderly people walking up to me asking whatever happened with the funding that was meant for the elderly people. And I think, and many of them, I found that have not been registered. So continued registration as proposed by Mheshimiwa Zambia is an important motion for us to take on, that we should continue registering more elderly people and making sure that they have received their benefits. It is only fair that we reward.
Honorable Zambia, who goes next? No, he's going to get the clerks are giving him the mic here. Yeah, okay, there's one behind you.
Asante sana Madam Speaker kwa kunipatia nafasi hii kuweza kuchangia hii mada. Lakini kabla nichangie, pia nataka nijiunge na viongozi wenzangu kuweza kuwatakia kina mama wa nchi yetu hii siku njema wanaposherehekea siku ya wanawake ulimwenguni. Nikirudi kwa mada, nataka nijiunge na kwanza nimpongeze Mheshimiwa Zambia kwa kuleta huu mswada. Kusema kweli, wazee hapa nchini Kenya wamepata shida kwa sababu wengi hawapati hizi pesa za uzeeni, na ni kitambo kutoka serikali iweze kuandikisha wazee kutoka 2016, na kutoka hapo mpaka saizi kuna wazee wengi ambao wameweza kufikia ile miaka ya kuweza kuandikishwa lakini hawapati pesa. Kwa hivyo mimi nasema ni sawa kabisa, huu mswada umekuja kwa wakati mzuri, wazee wote waandikishwe ili waweze kupata hata kama ni pesa kidogo, lakini zinawasaidia na mahitaji yao.
I'm informed the member for Narok had actually spoken on this. Narok North. I'm informed that once you weren't present when you were called, you forfeited the 10 minutes that you had.
Then we go to Andon Mpe.
Yes, you can call somebody else out.
Andon Mpe.
Proceed. You may proceed. The mic next to you is on. Point of order, Honorable Dr. Pukose. Just as a point of order.
On procedure, Madam Speaker, Honorable Zambia should be on record donating how many minutes to specific members of parliament. You can't just do it off the mic, that you are now pointing that one, you point that one. No, that's not a house how we do in parliament. You must be able to stick to our rules. But he must be able to put it on record that he is given so and so, and it's 1 minute, so that we do it cleanly.
Proceed, Honorable Zambia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think the member probably was not listening to my speech. I clearly said that I will give each member 1 minute, and that is already in record. So can we proceed, Honorable Speaker, with Mpe?
1 minute.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mimi nami nasimama kuunga hoja hii kuhusu namna ya wazee ambavyo wangeweza kulipwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka nimpongeze Mheshimiwa Zambia kwa kuja na hii hoja wakati ambao unafaa. Kwa hakika tuko na wazee kule vijijini ambao hali zao za kimaisha, za kiafya si nzuri, na labda hii hoja ikiweza kupita, nina hakika kwamba wazee kama wale wataweza kupata fedha ambazo zitawakimu kimaisha. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia nilikuwa ninaomba ile miaka ambayo imewekwa ya wazee kuweza kupata hazina hii, kwa sababu kisheria inasemekana kwamba ni mpaka mzee afike miaka 70 ndio aweze kupata pesa hii. Mheshimiwa Spika, ningeomba bunge hili liweze kupunguza ile miaka, kwa sababu wazee wetu kule vijijini wanakufa kabla kufikia ile miaka ya hao kuweza kupata pesa hizi.
Okay, I think Honorable Zambia, you finished your minutes. Yeah, so you've exhausted your minutes. We'll just now move to put the question. You can reply.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. Let me first appreciate all the members who have really discussed about this motion. It was timely. Honorable Speaker, I think my Honorable, because the Chairman should give me my time so that I can be through with what I'm trying to reply. Honorable Speaker, it is very clear now that the government has to have its policy clear, so that now we can have the continuous registration of these old wazes so that they can benefit like the other members are benefiting. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude and as I reply, it is very possible to register over 2 million people and have their take home like the other members in the community, in the society. There are those who have been benefiting from the same funds, and it looks like it's a discrimination when other members who have attained the same age are not benefiting.
You're moved. Honorable members, I now put the question that aware that Article 57 of the Constitution outlines the measures to be taken to ensure that the rights of elderly persons, noting that elderly persons, particularly from vulnerable backgrounds and who are in dire need across the country, require financial aid for the sustainability in regard to health and well-being, and recognizing that the Older Persons Cash Transfer Program, launched in 2007, with the purpose of facilitation of monthly cash transfer to the disadvantaged and vulnerable elderly persons from identified deserving households who are 65 years and above across the country, and concerned the registration of the persons of 65 years and above were last conducted in the year 2016, and cognizant of the fact that there was many elderly persons who have since attained the age of 65 and are yet to be registered under the Old Persons Cash Transfer Program. Further concerned that the program has in the recent past undergone unprecedented encounters in regard to new entries, technological mode of fund transfer developments, digital registration of elderly persons, inadequate monitoring and irregular receipts of funds. This House resolves that the national government, through the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, undertakes continuous, timely registration of elderly persons under the Older Persons Cash Transfer Program. In as many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. In as many as of that, the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 13, motion, policy formulation on implementation and enhancements of EPZ programs in the country.
Honorable Beatrice Elachi, member for Dagoretti North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that aware that the Export Processing Zones EPZ Authority in Kenya was established in 1990 to promote and facilitate export orientation investment programs and create incentives of export-oriented production in areas designated as export processing zones. Further aware that the authority is charged with the responsibility of regulating and administering approved activities within the export processing zones to ensure compliance, among others, noting that the program anchors on Kenya's Vision 2030, the country's economic blueprint with regard to becoming an industrialized and upper middle income country. Further noting that EPZ provides an attractive investment opportunity for export-oriented businesses ventures in the country, acknowledging that the program is a source of indirect and direct employment to more than 60,000 Kenyans, concerned that currently the program is facing a myriad of challenges, including inadequate funding, prohibitive cost of accessing business loans, high cost of production, shrinking export market due to effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, inadequate supplies of raw materials, water and power of agro-processing companies, among others. Further concerned that there is need to revamp the said program to improve its performance through increased funding to aid, for instance, in setting up of excellence centers in some parts of the country, expeding to negotiations for market access, especially to the East African Community, EAC, including trade negotiations between Kenya and other countries on diversification of products eligible under the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, the employee training and retention, provision of reliable supply of raw materials for agro-processing companies, improvement of infrastructure to enhance steady power, and provisions of affordable access to credit facilities, among others. This House resolves that the national government, through the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Industry, develops a policy whose core objective would be to, among others, address the challenges currently faced by EPZ with specific focus on implementing EPZ programs to enhance performance and enable retention of investors across the country, to enhance economic sustainability and allow companies to pursue businesses locally through the 20% waiver to enable them earn a living. Madam Speaker, today, as we celebrate International Women's Day, and I want to thank all the women, and especially the women of Kenya, 80% who work in EPZs and also in the agricultural sector. And to say that I stand here this morning, Madam Speaker, also to appreciate the Budget Committee for giving this institution money to create shades, but more importantly, to look at the industry, how it can support Kenyans and especially young people to be employed and to be able also to get jobs. Madam Speaker, the AGOA program started in this country when the Americans decided to support and have a trade framework with Kenya. And within this framework, we were able to see that Kenya was moving to the right direction. And you look at the program also, it is across the East Africa. I know we have EPZs in Ethiopia, but right now they are closed because of the conflicts that they are facing. And so when you look at this company, this is a company that can create a lot of impact, especially when government says that you want to employ. You need to enhance the EPZs to be able to employ. You need to enhance the EPZs to have a clear supply chain, Madam Speaker. And more importantly, this is an institution that employs more than 60,000 people, meaning indirect you can go beyond 60,000. And if enhanced well, and if government can put in more efforts, you will find yourself with 1 million people being employed. Madam Speaker, it's important for once in a while for us to just visit Kitengela and see how EPZs work. And you'll be surprised to find that it is women who are the ones doing the good jeans that you go to the US and buy. It is a product made in Kenya. And therefore, you are able to buy it when you go out of the country. But then there's a big challenge that they are facing today. That indeed, after COVID, you find that many organizations, industries were closed. And so even where we used to get our raw material, knowing very well that Kenya, we don't have cotton, and it is something that we need to start speaking about. We must have areas where we must plant our own cotton if we are talking about buy Kenya and build Kenya. And so here is a product where it's done within Kenya, but then Kenyans also are unable even to be able to just walk in and buy at least one, yet we say we have given ourselves 20%. And what this motion wants to do, Madam Speaker, is to now request the government that in that waiver of 20%, is it able, those who run EPZs, to be able to get also tenders from government? For example, we've just passed a motion on uniforms. If indeed they were being done by our own here, under the EPZ program, definitely it will be affordable to our parents to buy those uniforms. We are saying the uniforms for police. We are talking of our uniforms in hospitals, Madam Speaker. For these companies to be afloat, so that women are not sent home, so that one does not close a whole industry that he has invested millions, they are able to stay afloat. We must try and see, and this house can be a house to ensure that 20% also is sourced locally for them to keep the employees afloat. Madam Speaker, the other thing that this will do to us, and remember, EPZ is the one that helps us to keep our currency also. You find that we are having a lot of challenges with our currencies. But if you want indeed export to continue, then you'll have a way of selling back your currencies, and the dollar will not be a dollar that will kill us. And therefore, we have to come up with industrial parks, Madam Speaker, even the shades we were talking about. I would give you a story, Madam Speaker. Just when the Ukraine war started, an investor walked into Kenya, went to Kitengele. At that time, he wanted us to give him land to plant sunflower seeds so that they are able to continue to do oil. But then, walking into EPZ, they were told we are unable to give them any land. There were no shades. Yet right now, the investor moved to Tanzania, and Tanzania is now benefiting. You walk into an EPZ, you find, and I'll just give an example of Mass, where you have really serious productions going on of nearly 4 billion shillings. And so I know many people will not understand, but it is good to visit. Then you realize the impact that most of these EPZ companies does to Kenya, that indeed Ethiopia is closed. So are we able to have shades so that these companies can come back to Kenya to give our young people and many others not just business, but more importantly, employment? Madam Speaker, I think the most important thing that we can do is to see how we create also an excellence academy, so that many of these young people who would want to go, because when you find the facilities that are being used, the machines that are being used, they are machines of technology. And I walked into an EPZ in Kisumu, which is the first EPZ called Dada. Dada is an EPZ of a woman who worked in Kikomba for more than 30 years. Was able during COVID time, she realized we are having a lot of conflict in bringing Mitumba, and decided to go and open an EPZ in Kisumu. While in Kisumu, she went along, Madam Speaker, and now started recruiting young girls who had dropped out in school. Today, you walk into her facility, 3,000 young girls. These are girls who dropped out of school because of early pregnancy. They are able to come and do their work, but more importantly, able to go in the afternoon to Agumbaro so that you are able to continue and do your exams. And that's why we say, Madam Speaker, even as we celebrate women, these are the women we celebrate today. And I want to tell our young girls who I see, they are also listening and watching, that indeed when you are in school, always inspire yourself to ensure that one day out there, you will remember and you will change lives of others. That indeed, if you have a young girl who you feel is your friend and is threatened by early pregnancy, please talk to them. Do not look at them, do not victimize them. That is why we have different institutions taking care of them. So, Madam Speaker, as I finalize, so that I call my sister Martha to second, I just want to say, as we debate on this motion, let us remember this is one flagship program that can transform lives of very many young people. Let us remember that in Ethiopia, now that they were closed by the Americans because of their conflict, Kenya is the hub to take over. And indeed, everyone appreciates that Kenya is a hub within East Africa that has done so well on their AGOA program. With those few remarks, I beg to ask Honorable Martha Wangari to second. I beg to move and ask Honorable Martha Wangari to second. What am I begging to move?
You may proceed, Honorable Wangari.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And allow me to also take this opportunity to wish all the women a happy International Women's Day, including yourself, Madam Speaker, and including the mover of this very good motion. And I know many women say that they would do better anything that a man can do. It should actually be the other way around, that the men should be saying they could do everything that women are able to do. That should be the way it should be, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I want to quote Maya Angelou and say that women, here is to the strong women, may we know them, may we be them, and we can't be them like our colleague members of parliament, may we raise them. That way, Madam Speaker, we'll be celebrating a whole generation, and we will be encouraging even the girls that are coming up that women are leaders everywhere you look. Madam Speaker, allow me to take this opportunity to support this motion, to second this motion, and also congratulate my colleague, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, on this very able motion, Madam Speaker, and to also note, Madam Speaker, that even as we celebrate women in the political sphere, that we have come a long way. We have tried very many ideas, very many bills to ensure that we have gender parity in elective positions. We have not gotten there, Madam Speaker. It's still a long way to go, but we are making strides. And Honorable Elachi is also one of the people who actually can show that affirmative action can start all the way from the nominated members we see in this house, that they can be elected, because I was with her in the Senate, 11th Parliament. We were able to be elected in the 12th, and she also became a speaker, Madam Speaker. And that is why I also support your initiative. Yes, a county, Nairobi City County Assembly Speaker, and later to this House, Madam Speaker. So this shows that affirmative action is possible to ensure that more women are represented in this House, and even as we debate the presidential memorandum to ensure that not more than 2/3 gender rule, Madam Speaker, this should be evidence that affirmative action can be achieved and can be a good way to ensure the numbers are better. But on this motion, Madam Speaker, the issue of the establishment of the EPZ production outlets, Madam Speaker, was done in the 90s, and it has gone a long way to ensure that we have incorporated MSMEs in this country. More than 75% owned businesses that are able to be registered at the EPZ, Madam Speaker, are able to get incentives to ensure that they get good production. They get corporate tax holidays, I think for 10 years. They get 10 years withholding tax holidays. They also get perpetual exemption for payment of stamp duty on legal instruments. Madam Speaker, that way we are able to nurture very many businesses, very many even women-owned businesses, Madam Speaker, to be able to rise and to be able to actually enter the market and be able to survive. But Madam Speaker, the issue of COVID has been able to deal a blow to many people, not only in the personal levels, but also in the corporate levels. That has not left the EPZ. They have suffered, Madam Speaker, in terms of their production, and yet we have very many direct and indirect jobs running into thousands that depend on this. The previous government, Madam Speaker, was able to have something that was like an exposition or like an expedition, and they had a day that was called the EPZ Day at KICC. I think this is something the Ministry of Trade should look at, because if you want to buy even a pair of jeans, by the way, Madam Speaker, I have bought from EPZ, they have very good quality jeans, Madam Speaker. But how many people are able to afford or even to know where to get them? These 20% that come to the market, how do we know where to flag them out if you want to buy, Madam Speaker? I know we wanted to control a bit so that you also don't open the market, so that I go there and buy at a cheaper price and I come and sell wholesale, Madam Speaker. But you should be able to get a dress, you should be able to get an apron, you should be able to get a pair of jeans if you want, so that we are able to open this market and keep these EPZ zones afloat. Last Friday, Madam Speaker, the President, His Excellency William Ruto, was in Gilgil, the NYS pass out parade, Madam Speaker. We had a group or a cohort of 10,600. This time, it will be almost 20,000 that will be passing out. Madam Speaker, the quality of work done by our NYS is amazing. In terms of the uniforms for the police, we do not even need to go to China. We don't need to go outside the country. We have the workmanship, we have the training, we have the capacity, and more importantly, we have available labor. That available labor in NYS, and I can imagine in all the other NYS colleges, Madam Speaker, should actually be looped together with this EPZ so that we have the absorption. Because if you do a paramilitary training for these almost 11,000 kids and you do not absorb them, Madam Speaker, then you leave them out there with the training and it does not actually make sense. They are trained well, capacity training, they have the knowledge and they have the machinery. Madam Speaker, what we should be looking at, even as we empower EPZ, is that we should be able to loop them in to ensure that we actually have zones, so that it's not just in Kitengela. Let us expand this to the other parts of the country where we have NYS, where we have available labor. Let us be able to ensure we use that labor to train more and more to get into the market, Madam Speaker. But more importantly, let us get the government to continue supporting the EPZ, especially through funding that is timely, through funding that is assured, so that they are also able to project what their production would be, and more importantly, by opening up that they are able to link even to the tendering process of government, Madam Speaker. Because when we say SMEs register in EPZ, one qualification that you need so that you are given that license as an SME or a small medium enterprise, Madam Speaker, is that your company should be over 75% locally owned. That means, Madam Speaker, that we will be absorbing so many of these MSMEs to be able to tap into the resources. And we have a lot of government tendering going on. Madam Speaker, today, as you have heard members speak, they have a recruitment going on of Kenya Forestry Service Rangers. Over 2,000, Madam Speaker. They will need uniforms and not one pair. They will need boots and not one pair. And you go the way another sector is Kenya Wildlife Services, you'll go to the Kenya Police, you will go to even the NYS themselves. They have uniforms that they wear every day. They have the ceremonial ones. Same to the Kenya Police, same to the Administration Police, same to the Kenya Defense Forces. So, Madam Speaker, in terms of capacity, we can utilize what we have, the EPZ and also the NYS labor, so that we are able to supply our uniformed forces and also the private sector, Madam Speaker, because you also have private guards, the G4Ss, the KKs, that are always being used by private procurers. So we are able to get this market opened up for EPZ so that you're able to keep them afloat. Because, Madam Speaker, anywhere there is any industry, it does not only touch on the people inside the industry, it touches on the people around it. If you go to where EPZ is in Kitengela, you will get people who will eat every day. So there will be a woman supplying chapo madodo every day. There will be a woman bringing porridge. There will be a woman washing clothes. There will be something happening, Madam Speaker. And that is exactly what we are looking forward to, so that we change our communities, we change our country bottom up. Madam Speaker, this is the way to do it through EPZ. And I hope that we are able to nurture this and give more incentives so that we are also able to license more companies that are small and medium enterprises to be able to take the advantage. Because, Madam Speaker, what do you mean when you say you are incubating small businesses? It means if you get these tax holidays, if you get the shades, Madam Speaker, you are able to do your work and lower your cost of production so that you are able to maximize on your markup in terms of profit. So, Madam Speaker, I hope that this can be done by the government, and I would like to actually support that we integrate them with NYS colleges so that you are able to get even a bigger market to leverage on the issues of tendering and issues of getting more and more absorbed. So I want to thank Honorable Beatrice Elachi for this very timely motion, and hope that this House can actually support them to be able to, can actually give a support and from the members to be able to do better and leverage even internationally and in the international trade and markets that are available. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to second. Thank you.
Honorable members, I now put the question that aware that the export... Yes, honorable members, I wish to propose the motion that aware that the export processing zones EPZ authority in Kenya was established in 1990 to promote and facilitate the export-oriented investment programs and create incentives for export-oriented production in areas designated as export processing zones. Further, aware that the authority is charged with the responsibility of regulating and administering approved activities with the export processing zones to ensure compliance, among others, and noting that the program anchors on the Kenya Vision 2030 and the country's economic blueprint regard to becoming an industrialized and upper middle income country. Further, noting that the EPZ provides an attractive investment opportunity for export-oriented businesses and ventures in the country, and acknowledging that the program is a source of direct and indirect employment to more than 60,000 Kenyans concerned that currently the program is facing a myriad of challenges, including inadequate funding, prohibitive cost of accessing business loans, high cost of production, shrinking export market due to effects of COVID-19 pandemic, inadequate supplies of raw materials, water and power for agro-processing companies, among others, and further concerned that there is need to revamp the said program to improve its performance through the increased funding, to aid, for instance, in setting up of the excellence centers in some parts of the country and expediting on the negotiations for market access, especially in the East African community, including trade negotiations between Kenya and other countries on diversification of products eligible for the African Growth and Opportunity Act AGOA, employee training and retention, provision of reliable supply of materials for agro-processing companies, improvement of infrastructure to enhance steady supply of water and power, and provision of affordable access to credit facilities, among others. This House resolves that the national government, through the Ministry of Trade and Investment, develops a policy whose core objective would be, among others, to address the challenges currently faced by EPZ with specific focus on implementing EPZ programs to enhance performance and enable retention of investors across the country, and to enhance economic suitability and allow companies to pursue businesses locally through the 20% waiver to enable them earn a living. Honorable members, we now call upon members to contribute. The Honorable Didimas Baraza, member for Kimilili. I see you are the first one to come in today.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to make it clear that I support this motion, and I really want to thank and appreciate the people of Dagoretti North for bringing Beatrice Elachi in this House as their Member of Parliament. Had they not done that, Madam Speaker, this very good idea could be somewhere not helpful to the citizens of this country. Madam Speaker, this is important because every part of this country is preoccupied by particular ethnic groups that form the fabric that wires the Kenyan Republic, Madam Speaker. And every people who live in the different parts of this country are usually engaged in distinct economic activity. The people from Western Kenya are known to be very good farmers. The people of Nyanza are known to be very good fishermen. So this motion, Madam Speaker, will go a long way to ensure that we have job creation across every part of this country. Madam Speaker, Kenyans are very hardworking people. They're always engaged in this type of economic activity. And all we need, Madam Speaker, is that the creation of these EPZ zones will go a long way to ensure that this country does not only depend on imports, but we will also be exporting some of the finished products, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it pains most of us because I'm told when you go to buy a Masai Kikoi in a shop in town here, Madam Speaker, chances are that that Kikoi had been manufactured by some companies in India or China or elsewhere. So the only way to ensure that we add value to the hard work that Kenyans always put in their daily engagements, Madam Speaker, is to ensure that the government comes up with a proper framework to ensure that all these EPZ zones are set up across the country so that they can go a long way to assist our people. Madam Speaker, Kenya has a lot of potential. We are importing fabrics from India, yet we have very good climatic conditions that can support pyrethrum farming and actually give capacity to our local industries to begin even exporting cheap fabric to our neighboring countries. I want to really thank my sister Beatrice Elachi for thinking along this line, and I want to encourage her that even after we are done and approve this motion, she should also deduce this motion into a bill so that now we have a bill in place that the government of Kenya will have no choice but to implement this directive to set up more export processing zones across this country so that Kenyans can continue to tap into the very many benefits that will come as a result of setting up these EPZ zones, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this motion is coming at the right time, where the country's education systems have evolved to CBC. We want to begin encouraging grade 7, grade 8, and grade 9 as they progress, Madam Speaker, that we will want to see a situation where our junior secondary schools, those who will be learning technologies that are in line with what EPZ can promote, will want even to see them also, Madam Speaker, benefiting from these EPZ zones. That when children of a particular school will be learning about how to knit suits or trousers or nice kikois, they can go in and take practicals from the nearest EPZ zone that will be measuring in development of our fabrics, Madam Speaker. And also, Madam Speaker, even as we say that this CBC is good, that it will result into direct impacting of the skills in these students, it will be a waste of time if we will have so many people in this country with these skills, but there is no employment. The only way to guarantee employment, Madam Speaker, is by creation of these cottage industries. And these cottage industries will only have value if they are within gazetted and approved EPZ zones, Madam Speaker. So this is something which the government must take seriously. And I want to urge the government. I'm happy that we have a new government in place, and unlike the previous one, I am hopeful that this new one, Madam Speaker, will take whatever come out of this House very seriously. I will want to see a situation where whatever this House resolves will form part of the budget policy statements, will form part of the government policy designs and policy implementations, or rather will lead into policy termination of some extinct policies that are of no importance to the citizens of this country, Madam Speaker. So I really want to, I hope that the CS in charge of trade, the Honorable Moses Kuria, will be passionate about implementing this directive, and I am sure that every member of parliament in this House will support this motion so that you can have it approved and the government picks up from there, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you move across this country, you will find that we do not have idling population. Every single citizen in this country is involved in some activity. We just asking the government that to support whatever those activities are in terms of putting them together, putting the skills together, and actually take advantage of the diversity of the economic activities across this country to set up different EPZ zones, Madam Speaker, so that Kenyans can employ themselves, Kenyans can get market for the product that they are producing, so that Kenyans can also have access to the markets of the various products outside this country, Madam Speaker. Kenya has always been a one-way traffic, that we are always importing products from other countries, that even when we are producing tea, even when we are producing coffee, we are still importing coffee and tea from countries that don't even grow coffee, Madam Speaker. So it's high time that we add value to our coffee farmers, we add value to our milk farmers, we add value to our maize farmers, sugarcane farmers, peripheral farmers, Madam Speaker, so that they can also take their business to the next level through the value additions that come as a result of setting up EPZ zones, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with these very many remarks, I want to say I support and I urge the young members of Parliament who are here for the first time to emulate what the Honorable Bitu Selachi has done and try to think through and bring things that will make life easy for citizens. This is why Parliament exists, Madam Speaker, and by so doing, we will be able to contribute positively to the advancement of the welfare of the Kenyan people. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
Thank you, Honorable Didmas. This chance will go to the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would like to congratulate our lady, the Honorable Elachi, for this very thoughtful, well-thought motion. But as I delve into the details of this motion, I would like to draw the Honorable Elachi to one or two things. One, this country already has an Export Processing Zone Act, which was enacted in 1990. And this act actually forms the bedrock of the EPZ that we have, including the formation of the EPZ Council, which was in the core of negotiating the AGOA deal. Honorable Speaker, every time the AGOA matter is mentioned here, it's very I've become very passionate, because one of the things I studied in my planning lessons at my master's level was actually the AGOA, and I have written quite a lot about AGOA and how it has benefited this country. Today, Kenya's GDP has been enhanced by the AGOA Treaty, and we have over 44% of the GDP being contributed by AGOA. But Madam Speaker, I would like to draw the attention of the House to three things that this motion would like to do, that Honorable Elachi is asking this House to resolve. The first one is that it should have specific focus on implementing EPZ programs to enhance performance. That is the first one, to enhance performance. Yes, we have issues within EPZ. Today, the AGOA Treaty is coming to an end in 2023. Kenya has already started negotiations, and I think the Minister for Trade has met the ambassador from the US, and they have had talks around AGOA and how to extend AGOA. But AGOA falls squarely within the FTA, the Free Trade Agreement in the US. And I think there has been talk that the Free Trade Agreement needs to be renegotiated, because it is skewed against the US. And the US said, we want to renegotiate this, because AGOA gives Kenyan apparels, Kenyan products, free access or non-tariff access to the US. But the US are saying, no, 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 we do not want this to continue. We want it changed. We do not want everything that comes from Kenya to come into the US free. How strong are we as a Kenyan delegation to negotiate the FTA and AGOA so that it makes value for us? Otherwise, we will have AGOA, we will have processing here, but we will not have a market. There is a correlation between the development of this country, especially in export processing, and markets abroad. So the issues here are, how do we make it? I like the way you phrased your resolution. You want to enhance performance. But this performance, honorable members, needs to be what performance? Just production, or do we have a market? How are we negotiating our market? Should it just be to the US, or we are looking at new markets? What about Asia? Probably Bangladesh manufactures the same things as us, but they have a bigger population that consumes. How do we penetrate that market? India has one of the largest populations. Are they part of AGOA? No, they are not part of AGOA. How do we penetrate the Asian India as a market with our apparels? How do we enhance performance? That is the question that this House needs to delve into. As the negotiations go on, when we say we are making policy here, but a law exists, how do we take this to the agreements that are going on? For example, right now you have the Strategic Trade Investment Partnership that is being negotiated. The STIP is being negotiated. But the question of enhancing efficiency or performance by our companies, if you go to Mombasa today, as you drive towards Malindi, to the north, you see a lot of new establishments, new products. AGOA, I think, allows around 23 products only. How are we increasing the products so that this country can have more products exported outside, so that we get more business and we can grow the GDP of this country? You say enable retention of investors across the country. It is a fact, Madam Speaker, that a lot of investors have what we call investor flight. They're leaving the country. Where are they leaving the country? Why do they want to continue investing? The cost of our production in this country is very high. Electricity, water, labor, and many other things that are making Kenya not an investment-friendly country. So today, when I saw the president go to Dongokundu to launch the first gas production unit there, I said, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. There are some people out there who have a lot of confidence in the Kenyan situation. They can come and invest here. But, Honorable Speaker, we are losing. We're losing investors. We are losing investors. That's why I come to another conclusion, and the move of the motion needs to take note of this one. Do we want to stick to only EPZ, or do we want to move this country to EZ, economic zones, where we have many more, special economic zones? The EPZ is only one form of an economic zone. It's a special economic zone called EPZ. Do we want to move this country to EZ such that the EPZ that we have can now be diversified and we have a broader policy, a broader law on SEZ or EZ, so that we can create more business, we can create more? Do we only want to go to export processing, or do we want to go to full manufacturing? Do we want to go to other areas? For example, the service industry. If you go to Singapore today, you find that their special economic zone, they have an area which is only tourism. They have a zoo. They don't have elephants, but they've brought in elephants. They are benefiting immensely from the service industry. If you go to Dubai right now, they have a special economic zone, but that special economic zone is only for services. And the services industry in the world today makes more money. Countries that have gone into the service industry are making more money, and the GDP is growing faster. So, Madam Speaker, what I would like to enrich the movers' document by saying probably we need to have a broader policy on EZ, economic zones in this country, so that each county has a special economic zone, and they choose if they want to do AGOA or they want to do other treaties, such that this country's GDP can grow as we move forward. Lastly, Madam Speaker, I would like the Trade Committee in this House, as we move on this motion, the Trade Committee to take greater interest in the talks that are going on. As a parliament, we cannot just watch the executive alone handle the AGOA treaty, handle the many other treaties, the STIP which is going on. I think the Trade Committee here needs to have some input in these talks that are going on. And I think the Minister for Trade, the Cabinet Secretary for Trade, has been all over the world. But I do not know whether he carries along with him the chairman of the Trade Committee in this Parliament, so that the input of Parliament can be felt in the negotiations, so that Parliament can also have a say, so that even those treaties that they are signing should be brought here for us to be able to scrutinize, to know what is it that they are negotiating out there, so that we can enhance the experience of the special economic zone in this country. And lastly, the mover talks about and allow companies to pursue business locally through the 20% waiver to enable them earn a living. Honorable Speaker, the finance bill will come to this House. When the finance bill comes to this House, it will create all these things, the waivers, the taxes, and all that. But I would like to see the department, the Committee on Trade, come hard and say, no, we need to reduce taxes. We need to reduce these levies. We need to reduce these charges to enhance investor confidence, or to enhance retention of investors. So, Madam Beatrice Elash, as we move forward, and I hope you will note this in your reply, as you reply towards the end of this, is that we need to have a greater input in the finance bill. It is the finance bill that will create a greater latitude and opportunity for us to be able to reduce the high cost of production in this country, for which investors are shunning this country because of high cost of production. Lower the rates of production, reduce levies, and be able to make the country a more economic and an investor-friendly economy. That's what we need to do. But also Probably, Madam Elachi, you need to look at whether you just want to stick with export processing zone or you want to open this country to more economic zones in different parts of the country. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. This chance will go to the member for Nambale, Honorable Geoffrey Mulanya.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving this chance to air my views on this motion. First, I wish to thank Honorable Lachi for bringing this noble motion to support the EPZ zones in our country. Madam Speaker, we must appreciate that as a developing nation, we are faced with so many challenges, among them the challenge of unemployment. And we have many youth that are being trained through the TVTs that have been established by the government, but after that, they face a challenge of getting employed. If the government can support the EPZ zones, I believe that we'll have a good chance that our people, after training through these colleges, will have opportunity to get employed. Secondly, we know that through the exports that are done from the EPZ, our government is going to earn a good revenue to support our economy. And for a person coming from cotton-rich zone like the Western region, I support for the ministry to come up with the policies that can address challenges that are facing EPZ, so that this will support many farmers, because the farmers who engage in cotton farming will produce the raw material that the people involved in the EPZs will be using for production of the garment they're producing. So, Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I wish to support the motion and thank Honorable Lachi for coming up with this noble motion.
Thank you. Member for Kilgoris, Honorable Julius Olesunkuli.
Madam Speaker, before I make my remarks, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate all the women of the world for this International Women's Day. I know that the one-time president of China, Mao Zedong, said that women hold half the sky. And when President Kennedy was asked in 1960 whether by the year 2000 women will be ruling the world, he said, yes, they'll still be at it. So I congratulate the real rulers of the world on this important day. And I also want to thank my colleague and Honorable Elachi for this motion. The Ministry of Trade, under the law, the act that has been referred to by the majority leader, registers EPZs throughout Kenya. There are about 7 of them now. And the essence of the EPZ is that it gets favorable trade conditions, favorable conditions. It is insulated from the tax regime in Kenya. And it gets many duty-free concessions. Now, this together, Madam Speaker, comes with a lot of responsibilities that other than the 20% allowed of them, they are supposed to produce only for export. Now, then that comes with a lot of challenges, especially where we stand now with our economy. Like every export-oriented business, EPZ business will be affected by the external factors, the global economy. In the first place, the exchange rate will have to be pegged on the dollar. And when the dollar is low, then the business is okay for us. But when the dollar against the shilling is quite advantaged, then we have a problem with our export business. The dollar in Kenya now, I think, has hit 138 shillings to $1. That will affect our exports a lot. Our external
clients would like to buy our goods at a cheaper price. But once this dollar it becomes disadvantageous to us, then they get the advantage over us. Right now, they'll get our goods at throwaway prices, and that will affect our youth from being employed. My second point, Madam Speaker, is with respect to employment of our youth. I know many of my colleagues here, everybody is thinking about his home area, but I want to tell you that the EPZ is supposed to be for the Republic of Kenya. Whether it's located in Kilifi or in Nairobi, it is supposed to serve all the people of Kenya. And it is important that when employment opportunities do arise in the EPZ, that these opportunities should not be segregated, do not be localized, because we cannot localize Kenya to the smallest decimal point. Kenya is still Kenya, and the opportunities that come within the EPZ, wherever they are located, should not be construed to be for that particular location. And the other point, Madam Speaker, which has been elaborated clearly by the Deputy Majority Leader, is this question of AGOA. But I take the view myself that it is wrong to assume that EPZs were created for AGOA. The Lome Treaty did its part, and it produced a free trade, preferential trade agreements between Sub-Saharan Africa and America. And America passed this AGOA law knowing that it is for its own advantage, and it is at liberty to change this whenever its own interests are not there. We in Kenya must always be innovative. America is just one of our markets, but we must expand our markets. We must expand our markets, and President Kibaki did say, let's look east. I was advantaged to be ambassador of this country in China, and I know how our trade has been coming up all the time, has been increasing and improving with respect to Chinese. Of course, this thing is reciprocal, that when we think of producing things for other countries, we must also not come and discriminate against commodities produced by other people. Let us open our markets abroad. Let our ambassadors abroad be economic ambassadors. We are no longer involved in political diplomacy. That we already have. We are already friends with all of East Africa. What we want now is to market our commodities, to produce our commodities for the world, because we cannot sit down and say, oh, the Americans today are our friends, and you know they are not. They serve their own interests. They are our friends if we have favorable terms towards them, and we must continue asking the rest of the world to buy our commodities. Madam Speaker, I don't know whether the majority leader actually did not understand that his government, the government where he's serving, actually already has a policy almost equivalent to that of the special economic zones, except that they are calling it industrial parks. These industrial parks that are being created everywhere in Dongokundu, and I think there was one planned for Eldoret and many others. This is the way to go. Of course, economic zones will not have the same advantages as the EPZ, because they'll be subject to the tax regime of the country. But it is a deliberate effort which has been used by countries. The city of Shenzhen in China was created purely as an economic zone to develop industry. And this would make a lot of sense if we ask these industrial parks to actually specialize. If you go to that city of Shenzhen, you'll find that it is electronics that are produced there. If you go to the city in Shanghai, it is another story. So in Kenya, if you have an EPZ also if you have a special economic zone in Dongokundu, we would like to know what is it specializing on, so that we do not just produce the same things. You know, the problem with us Africans, if somebody grows cabbages, everybody wants to grow the same. Then the price, the forces of the market will operate. So we would like to know the industrial park in Dongokundu, what will it be producing? The one that we want to place in Eldoret, the ones that we put in Naivasha, what are they going to produce, so that we can specialize and then we target the market. Because without the market, we are not going to produce these things for anybody else. We are not as lucky as those countries that have a lot of population. And we have been told as Africans all the time that we need to reduce our populations. And this might be good for one reason, but it is not good for economics. Today, the countries that have a lot of population are able to get effective demand of their commodities. They don't need an export market. But we cannot be proud unless we actually bring East Africa together. Then we get a population of 120 million people. But with our 50 million in Kenya, we will consume our goods and still require a market. So we need to be very, very creative. Our diplomacy needs to be oriented towards seeking the markets for our goods. And I think that will get the effects of the motion that our colleague here is saying, that we will get jobs, we will get a market, we will get to exchange our technology, and we'll get a better economy. Madam Speaker, I support.
You have said we go slow on the family planning. The next contributor will be the Deputy Majority Whip, Honorable Naomi Wako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to this very important motion, as I also congratulate Mheshimiwa Elachi for coming up with this, because it concerns all of us and it is beneficial to our young people and women and the men who get the opportunity to work in this area. As I said, I stand to support, and the reasons as to why I support, Madam Speaker, are as follows. I support it because of job creation. Kenya is one country that is growing very fast, but again, the challenge that we have with our youth is majority of them are graduates, and most of them are not employed, and they sit at their homes without doing anything, which at the end of the day frustrates them and they get into depression. Many of them have gone into drug addiction because of this, because of lack of employment, and promotion or enhancement of this will definitely mean that a lot of jobs will be created, and that will benefit our young people. Again, it is beneficial to us because of foreign direct investment. Kenya, as we know, is quite attractive to many investors, and many people are interested, many investors are interested. And when we enhance this and grow this to capacity, then we will have many people, many foreigners investing, and that will help us even to export our product to the international world. Madam Speaker, one time we were doing our shopping in USA, and we found our products there. And we were very happy. We ended up buying our own products in USA. And on this, again, I would want to say that it is high time for us not only to target the outside world, but to target our own market, because Kenyans are proud of themselves, and we are proud of our own product. So buy Kenya, build Kenya should be our motive and our aim as we do all those. Again, putting into consideration the purpose, which is to provide an attractive investment opportunity for export-oriented business venture. This will only go well when we will enhance and put a lot of investment there and have our own budget to support it, so that EPZ will grow and also reach out to many parts of this country. Again, Madam Speaker, through economic zones, Kenya Kwanza government will definitely improve and enhance this, and through the economic zones, we'll be able to be in almost every county, so that our young people, our women, and all the people who will get the opportunity to work there will be able to sustain their families. When we look at those who are already employed at EPZ, Madam Speaker, the majority are women. And women are the people who sustain their families. They are the pillars of our society. I will say something on the Women's International Day as I finish, but women are the people who sustain every family, and in every county, you can clearly see that women are very hardworking, and they do whatever they do with a lot of passion. And as we enhance this, I would like to request that special attention be given to women of this country, because sometimes women work very hard to bring up their children. They work hard when maybe even their spouses, go around, drink a lot, and don't even bring the resources home. Women work very hard for their families. And in turn again, they work hard for this country and build every party that has always been there. And even as Kenya Kwanza, we got to where we are because of the support we got from women. And so let us give a lot of attention to women. And when it comes to employment, the employment should also be very considerate to every part of this country. When you go to Kitengela, the faces you see there are the faces of the people who come from around there. I would want to see somebody from Marsabit in that employment and in that EPZ center. And when we see the face of Kenya, we will all be proud, because it's not only Marsabit, but think of Turkana, think of northeastern part of this country. And we get very few opportunities when it comes to employment. And it is high time for Kenyans to consider every part of this country when it comes to employment, when it comes to giving opportunity to people. And so I support this. And as I finish, I would want to say something on International Women's Day. I'm proud to be a woman and happy to be here today as a member of parliament and women representative representing my county. And it is my opportunity now to congratulate every woman in this country, and especially those women in ASAL areas where we are experiencing a terrible drought, famine, that has finished all the animals. Women walk for many kilometers, like 20, 30 kilometers, to fetch just 20 liters of water. Very hard life. Some of them are expectant, others are breastfeeding. They have no food at home, but they have no opportunity to stay and enjoy. Under that heat, very dry and hardship lifestyle, they go and they fetch water, they go and look for food. Madam Speaker, I respect the women who are struggling today, looking for food to put on their plates, on the plates of their children, walking for kilometers to fetch water, taking their children to schools because of the distance that is there. I respect every woman of this country, but especially those who are struggling because of famine and those who are suffering because of different challenges that they are going through. Happy International Women's Day, and I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Baringo North, Honorable Makilap. If not in the House, we'll have the member for Westlands, Honorable Timothy Wanyonyi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also want to contribute to this motion by the Honorable Beatrice Elachi. Madam Speaker, export processing zone was created in the in the 90s during the time of President Moi, and it was to enhance export material from Kenya. And Madam Speaker, we have not expanded in these processing zones. There should be at least at every corner of this country, especially now that we are devolved. We should devolve some of these functions to counties. Why is US a big economy? Because US have a market for themselves. Whatever they produce, but the large of it is consumed in the US. And that's why they find that even these, what you are doing, Madam Speaker, the processing zones, because most of these things are geared for export. We can also utilize the local and the regional markets that we have, East African community and the others, Madam Speaker. We have also to look at other regions. What have they done that have succeeded? India, China, those markets, Asian tigers. If you go to India, Madam Speaker, there are these cottage industries called handlooms. And these people produce, they're just handlooms because they're produced by people who do things almost in manual. And they're exported in countries like ours. Things we import here like carpets, we import some of these silk things. They come from India and they just done in local ways. In China, I'm told that a small industry can just cost about 30,000 Kenya shillings, and that person will be sitting in a small room and they produce, Madam Speaker, a lot of things that they can go for export. Therefore, we just need the government also to implement the policies that are already there that Honorable Sunguli has mentioned, that there's already a policy in place that we need now to make sure that we improve on these, create cheap credit facilities for these investors, and also give them incentives that they'll be able to invest more in this. We can only grow as a country if we can export. If we just rely on imports, Madam Speaker, then our economy will not grow. We must also find a way of exporting, and Kenya is a very rich country. We have abundance of human resource, cheap labor, and that's why some of you find that most of Kenyans now are going to work abroad because those other countries don't have labor. They are looking for labor in Africa, and we can also utilize on this. But what we have, Madam Speaker, now, there was one time I was in the US, Madam Speaker, and I went to a shop to buy a trouser, and when I looked at it, actually it was from Kenya, with a label from Kenya, and I was very proud about that. And those are some of the things that we need to see where our products going, where is our market. The government must deliberately, through the Ministry of Trade, to find market for our products, that we can sell our products abroad and we can also sell them locally. We can create these markets because sometimes Kenyans are being, Madam Speaker, they are going to buy these second-hand things when we can easily buy these things from these cottages. Madam Speaker, I want to support this motion and say that, Madam Speaker, we need now to look, even within Kenya, how do we export? Even within, like, tourism, how do we make Kenyans also enjoy the tourist facilities that we have? That sometimes Kenyans have never seen a lion and they stay here. They're just, Madam Speaker, because sometimes the cost is prohibitive. We need to see the cost of production and look at how we can also reduce the taxes that are, Madam Speaker, put on some of the raw materials that are used in these things, so that we can produce these things locally and make sure that we get quality products for export. And I also want to congratulate our women today celebrating the National Women's Day. Madam Speaker, we are with our women, we support them. They are our mothers, they are our sisters, our daughters. May they enjoy the day as they know that we are the strongest pillar for them. Thank you, Madam Speaker. God bless you.
Thank you, Honorable Anyonyi. Chance will go to the member for Makueni, Honorable Susan Kiamba.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion. Also thanking Honorable Ilachi for bringing this very important motion on the issues of EPZ, which are actually very crucial for the development of this country. And foremost, Honorable Speaker, before I contribute to this motion, I would wish all women of this country a happy International Women's Day, and in particular women from my constituency, and acknowledging that women are major stakeholders in changing this country, in making contribution. I would not also fail to thank the men who have been holding us behind as we come up as women, because I believe even for us to come to parliament, it's not only women who voted us, men also supported us with ideas, and they also voted for us. So as we congratulate the women and as they celebrate this International Women's Day, we want also to acknowledge men as partners in allowing us move forward. Now let me come to the motion, Honorable Speaker, and I would wish to say a few points. One, it is very important to realize in this particular country the issue of export. We are actually becoming a net importer. And once we are net importer, this means we had very limited foreign exchange. And this has actually continued to make us a little bit quite poor, because we are not earning the required, we are not exporting enough to make us earn the necessary revenue. That's why you see the dollar is going up, and actually that actually is affecting our business negatively. So I wish, when we look at manufacturing in this country, we realize that EPZ gives us the best opportunity. And I think this is an area that as a country we need to own and actually promote, because if this is the main manufacturing zone for us as Kenyans, we need to promote it so much so that we ensure that we get the required foreign exchange. We realize over the past, EPZ has been doing well. But if you look, even if you visit the zones in the river, they have laid up a lot of stuff. They have laid down a lot of employees. The major reason why this is happening, Madam Speaker, is because even locally, we are not giving them the required market. All of us are running to put on Turkey clothes, Indian clothes, I don't know where. I have nothing against India, neither Turkey. But I think we cannot start feeding other children, children of other mothers, when our own children do not have food. I think as a matter of priority, as this motion proposes, I think it's good as Kenyans to have a focus and ensure that we promote EPZ as much as we can, not only in matters policy, but also in matters of implementation. Because if you look even at our uniformed men and women, you realize that most times they are getting their wares from elsewhere. I mean, you mean we cannot buy to ourselves? If we cannot buy our own, who will believe in what we are making? So I think we need even to move forward with a kind of slogan or policy where we say, let's first buy Kenya. I have this, I don't know whether it's a fact or a theory, in Israel, where they say, before any money goes out, it must go 70 times in Israel. Why can we have something similar in Kenya? So that before any money goes out to anybody else, let it go, I don't know, 50 times among Kenyans. And that way we'll ensure we promote our own manufacturing zone. Secondly, we realize that in issues employment, and I think this point has been overemphasized, we are one of the countries that has a very high level of unemployment. And unless we expand our export zones, I don't know where we are expecting, Madam Speaker, this employment to come from. And I think if we gave them the necessary support, we would actually be very well positioned, because this will also become our learning zones. Because we talk so much, if you read papers in Kenya, you will see a lot of manufacturing. But when you go to the ground, actually if we were told to take people where we are manufacturing, Madam Speaker, where would we take them? Because personally I've traveled in this country, and if you look at areas where we are manufacturing, they are very much limited. So I support this motion brought about by Madam Elijah, that let's support EPZ zones, and not only even before we think of scaling them to other counties, can the one in the river work to the maximum? Because even taking it to other counties when we have not maximized the export at the river, I think we'll just be spreading very thinly. Madam Speaker, I think this is long overdue and it needs the focus. Lastly, I've just been wondering as a person, when will Kenyans think like Kenyans? When will Kenyans love themselves? And this I say in relation to these exporting zones. You realize that apart from what the manufacturing that is happening in EPZ, we have a lot of gineries like the one we have in Makueni. That is, and many other areas. You realize that in most areas, even our women, we even do not have any cash crop, especially in arid areas. If we could have things like cotton well promoted, we would not only provide the raw materials needed in EPZ, but would also have the required cash crops and incomes. Now you realize now cotton is a dead crop. Sugarcane is a dead, in terms of export, is also coming to the knees. So I realize, I think it's very important, Madam Speaker, that this motion is given the focus it requires, and not only at motion level, also moving it to implementation so that we see that we can have impact in our country. And with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support this motion, and I hope we can move forward in promoting our exports. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kibet Bureti. If not in the House, Honorable Kirwa from Mosop.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity that you've given me to contribute to this motion on EBZ. But before I do that, allow me to wish all the women on this International Women's Day a great day, because women play a major role in this world. They are the decision makers in most of the homes, they are the teachers, they are the professors, they are the leaders in most of the institutions. So I want to really wish them a great day today, as this is an International Women's Day, especially women in this chamber, led by the Deputy Speaker, Madam Speaker, and also even the Honorable Member who sponsored this motion for today. And all the women in our community, they play a major role. In our economy, they play a major role. So I wish you the best. I wish you a great day as we celebrate a Women's Day in the world. I want also to thank Honorable Elaji for bringing this motion, because Kenya, like one of our members said, that it is a net import. We import more than we export. And so this EBC Act that was brought up in 1990 was one of the, I would say, a project that was intended to actually change this country into an industrialized nation. But some way, somehow, we did not manage to invest and also improve on this particular project. So I believe, and I want to believe, that even the coming government will invest quite a bit on these EBC export processing zones, and not only here in Kitengela, but also spread it all over the country, so that the rest of the country will also enjoy the benefits of EBC. If you look at some of the countries that have truly moved from third world to first world, or even to upper middle income, like what Kenya is trying to do, they invested a lot of their resources in industries. And EBC is one of those industries that we need to truly invest and take a lot of our time to see what we need to do. As we speak, it's employing 60,000 Kenyans and even more. But when it was started, we never envisioned things like the corona issue that came up and affected a lot of companies. So EBC is struggling to stay afloat, because as we speak,
they may have laid off a lot of their employees because they may not be able to sustain maybe their taxes, they might not be able to sustain the products, they might not be able to sustain. So it is time to relook at it and figure out what incentives can we give to the traders, what incentives can we give to those involved in making sure that the EBC continues to thrive. Because we cannot use the regulations that was before the corona time, because most of the raw materials have gone up. You look at the cost of electricity is gone up, the cost of fuel has gone up, the cost of a lot of raw materials have gone up, and we have not gone back to see what can we do to sustain such industry. At the moment, the country is undergoing a lot of shortage in currency like dollars. We don't have foreign exchange, we don't have dollars because we are not exporting a lot of the products. So we are using the little dollars we have to buy the imports, but had we invested a lot in export on this EBZ, we would have quite a bit of dollars that would have helped to truly generate and keep our economy. But because we didn't do that, we are suffering. So one of the areas that we actually need to invest is on this EBZ. And as such, I truly stand to support this motion by Honorable Elaji that we ought to actually give them the subsidy. And she's talking of the 20% waiver to enable them to continue earning. Instead of them shutting down, if you look at all over the world, most of the industries has been subsidized. Most of the companies and most of the countries have subsidized their industrial companies so that they will continue to employ. You look at, as we say, most of our people are now going out of this country. They're going to Australia, they're going to US, they're going to, because they have shortage of labor, because their industrial companies are hiring and they need people who can work manually. So here in Kenya, we need to take advantage. As much as we're exporting people outside this country, we need also invest. As most of the members have said, you go to New York, you go to Dallas, you go to dealers to purchase a shirt or to purchase a trouser, you will run into a Kenyan made, made in Kenya, a shirt made in Kenya, trouser made in Kenya, costing maybe $120. $120, that's 13,000 shillings here. And so if you go to a local market, you may not be able to purchase this kind of product because it might be above the average Kenyan, but at the same time, it will help us to bring a lot of income into our country. So I support this motion that we need to enhance the EBC programs in the country to allow the traders to continue trading. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to support this motion. Thank you.
Member for Mwingi West, CNN, Honorable CNN.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice on this motion by Beatrice Elach, my resident member of Parliament. Let me start by thanking her, and secondly, wishing all the women happy International Women's Day. Madam Speaker, this motion is coming at a time when we are experiencing unfavorable imbalance of trade in this country. Madam Speaker, I'm talking of regionally, not actually in terms of the region, that is Africa, and internationally. Madam Speaker, we will also realize that this motion is coming at a time when we are implementing new proper CBC education system. So we will not lack issues of labor when it comes to implementing this issue. Another issue is it's coming when the shilling is losing ground on major world currencies like dollar, euro, and sterling pound. So implementation of this EPZ enhancement, or rather implementation of these EPZ programs in the country will have a positive economic multiplier effect in our economy, Madam Speaker. The only way to actually actualize, or rather to sort out so many myriad challenges we are facing as a country, is going towards industrialization and also increasing exports more than the imports, Madam Speaker. And we will have so many programs, or rather so many benefits if at all we are going to practice the famous paper we put on Vision 2030, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm happy there's a serious legislation which was given by the former President Moi when we started this program, but now it has collapsed. We need to revive it, and based on that, if we do so, we will have no issues of employment. Majority of our youth, majority of our women, they are lying idle in our rural countries. Secondly, we will have what we call investment opportunities abroad, apart from here exporting in Uganda or East African regions. We will have, we will enhance our products, or rather, we will enhance our exports in other countries if we are going to promote and enhance this program of EPZ. Madam Speaker, I know there are so many issues which have been raised. The issues of cost of production, because Kenya is one of the countries facing challenges of electricity production cost. There is also issue of inadequate funding when we are experiencing global challenges and shrinking economy. And the other thing is inadequate supply of raw material. But this should not be a case. The inadequate supply of raw material, if we are at all going to promote these things, we will have farmers now coming in place. And I think these challenges can be addressed. With those few remarks, without laboring so much, I support and thank you, Beatrice Elash, my resident member of parliament. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Dorothy Kiara.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, allow me to celebrate all the women in the country as we celebrate this International Women's Day. And more so, Madam Speaker, you seated on the chair today, I want to celebrate you as a young legislator who has made it to that level. And this is a clear indication that women have made remarkable strides in every scope of what they want to achieve. Madam Speaker, allow me also to celebrate the women teachers in this country. Having been a teacher and having served as a teacher for many years, Madam Speaker, I celebrate the women teachers because of the enormous responsibility bestowed upon them, and I can see some of them in the House today, Madam Speaker, because they have nurtured all of us and enabled us to be where we are today. I celebrate teachers in a big way. Allow me also, Madam Speaker, to celebrate our First Lady, Madam Lecho Ruto, Her Excellency, and the Second Lady, Madam Pastor Dorcas Gachagua, who have been championing and devoting all their time to pray for this country, because with all what we are planning to do, we cannot do it without peace. I celebrate them among very many other women. Having said that, Madam Speaker, I want to support this motion and add my voice to it, as I thank Madam Beatrice Serache for coming up with this very, very important motion, which is very, very timely. Madam Speaker, as we speak today, 1990, when this export processing zone was started by the then President of the Republic of Kenya, is a way long time. And by now, Madam Speaker, we would be expecting this episode, the economic zones, to have spread to other parts of this country. However, Madam Speaker, I cannot I cannot underscore the fact that this program has been steadfast and it is still in operation since then. Having employed a total number of 60,000 Kenyans, Madam Speaker, we would say this is a huge employer, but a lot more can be achieved if we have been steadfast in ensuring that our country becomes an economic country that can provide employment for the country. Madam Speaker, we are worrying so much day in, day out by the fact that very many youths in this country are not employed. And the only way we can be able to employ these youths is not to wait to give them white-collar jobs in offices. We can employ them both informally and formally by using the available channels that we have in this country. And one among them, it is in ensuring that, Madam Speaker, we have investors coming to this country and we have factories and provide raw materials, locally available raw materials. And a point in case is if we can be able to provide for cotton, which is normally planted in our farms, and Madam Speaker, we can use this to ensure that we have more and more factories and employ our youth. Madam Speaker, I'm aware that the cost of electricity in this country is far too high, and this has been a huge challenge. But the fact that electricity is expensive, that cannot stop us from starting other EPZ zones that can enable this country, Madam Speaker, to thrive like other countries. Normally, we are shocked because when we go to other countries like America, Madam Speaker, we go there and we come back with bags full of clothing. And when you look at the labels of the clothes that we buy, even from the American stores, like the jeans, you realize they are made in Kenya. But when we go to our shops in Kenya, the first question that you ask when you are given a garment to buy, you ask, is it made in Kenya? When you are told it's made in Kenya, you don't even have time to look at it because we want to buy things made in Turkey, made in India, made in Pakistan, and any other place which is not Kenya. Madam Speaker, this is the high time that we should promote and walk the talk of Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. Madam Speaker, and I'm sure if we do that, then even this policy that we are talking about, we'll be able to actualize it. I support this motion, Madam Speaker, and I want to say the issues that Madam Beatrice Erache raised about inadequate funding, this is something that we can be able to tackle as a matter of policy so that this country, we can be able to produce enough for ourselves and enough for export. I therefore urge all Kenyans, Madam Speaker, if they can be able to embrace the policy of Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, then as a country, we'll have all the reasons to spread out to the other counties and start these we start these export processing zones in the other counties. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support this very important motion.
Thank you, Honorable Dorothy. This chance will go to the member for Kitutu Masaba, Honorable Clive Gizairo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Firstly, let me wish all the women of Kenya Happy Women's Day, and most importantly, women of Kitutu Masaba. Madam Speaker, I would like to support this motion by Honorable Elachi on the importance of us putting more emphasis on the EPZ. Madam Speaker, the world is evolving forward, our education system is changing, and we need to adopt to the same. With the introduction of CBC, we are moving more to a technical environment rather than a theoretical one. We need to have a lot of emphasis on how we create industries for these youths once they are done with education. Madam Speaker, as we embrace CBC, I would also urge that most of our youth start embracing the TVET colleges, because CBC is more aligned towards TVET rather than the normal university education system that we are used to. And with this kind of training, we'll need to be prepared to absorb these youths into the industry. EPZ was a well thought out idea, but somehow it has lost traction. Kenya, as we speak today, is a net importer. That is why we are not able even to strengthen our shilling. As many contributors have said today, as at yesterday, the shilling is at 138 to the dollar. This cannot be good to the economy of this country in the short run, in the midterm, or in the long run. If we don't think as a nation how we start exporting more, and importing less, the economy is not going to regain. Each region in this country has its own strength. Why don't we have more of these processing zones, both export and also processing zones for local market, taking advantage on what that region can produce at a lower cost. This creates jobs and also a market for raw materials for that specific region. Madam Speaker, when I heard speakers say here, they go to the US, they find a jeans made in Kenya, I just hope they didn't purchase it. Because if you purchase it in the US, what you've done, you've participated in capital flight. As a country, you got $50, you walk into the US and buy the same thing you received $50 for at $150. As a country, we've lost $100. So once we find it there, let's encourage those people there to buy it. Let's fly back here and look for it locally. The EPZ needs to be strengthened. Our marketing sector, Brand Kenya, needs to up their game. We cannot just be exporting tourism and expect that you're going to save the economy. We have to start producing more. Otherwise, the youths out there will not have jobs, and the owners will rest on us. We as the leaders will have the biggest challenges. Honorable Beatrice Elachi has brought these to the House at the best and most opportune time. We need to support it and urge the government, as it is a bottoms-up government, that this is the place to start. If we don't do it now, if we don't support industries, if we do not support production, we will have tough times ahead. Madam Speaker, I will sit and say that I support this motion, and I wish that Honorable Elachi brings it to the House as a bill, we make it a law, and in it, let her include that we need to have more of this across the country in each county, where raw materials for each county are processed locally at that county, so that we increase revenue and create job opportunities for our youths. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Sirisia, Honorable John Waluke.
I took. Hello? Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me time also to contribute on this very important motion. I want also to thank Madam Beatrice Elaji, Honorable Beatrice Elaji, for bringing in this motion. Madam Speaker, it is timely and very, very important that our country, Kenya, Madam Speaker, has a lot of potential. Madam Speaker, if we as Kenyans love our country the way we love ourselves, Madam Speaker, most of us Kenyans do not love their country like other people in other countries, Madam Speaker. Because I've been to US, Americans put their country first than another country, Madam Speaker, and we need to borrow that so that we build our economy from ourselves. We need to support this country, Madam Speaker, in terms of economy, like what Madam Honorable Alachi has brought, the EPZ zone, Madam Speaker. It used to be there during those days when we were still young, during President Moi's time. I think the late President Moi had a vision for this country, Madam Speaker, because many industries were doing well. And, you know, like now, the two regimes that have been there, Madam Speaker, many industries collapsed. It's only this time when we are seeing the current president who is really trying to revive many of these industries and trying to build the economy, although it is down, Madam Speaker. But if all Kenyans come in support, Madam Speaker, this country can improve. We need to add value on our crops, like coffee, Madam Speaker. It used to be called black gold during those days, Madam Speaker. But the middlemen between, Madam Speaker, have brought it down. Even tea, Madam Speaker, our tea is liked all over the world. But instead of taking advantage to add value on that, Madam Speaker, the middlemen want to earn more even than the farmer himself, Madam Speaker. The tourism, if you check the trade, Madam Speaker, at now, Uganda is doing very well, more than Kenya. Tanzania is doing well. So the many tourists who are coming in Africa or East Africa, Madam Speaker, many of them are going to Uganda and Tanzania, which is a pity to our country, Madam Speaker. So the tourism sector also should be looked into. The marketing, Madam Speaker, of these crops that we are mentioning, Madam Speaker. If we improve on that, Madam Speaker, I think this country, we have a good country, and we can improve in terms of export. because we are only importing. We are exporting very little, and that cannot build our economy, Madam Speaker. So the export zone should be more improved so that the economy can build up. So with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support this, and I want to wish women of this country and women all over the world a happy Mother's Day, because, I mean, Women's Day, because they are our mothers, we have our daughters, we have all the women all over the world. Madam Speaker, I want to wish them well and a happy Women's Day, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Look, even Mother's Day will take it. Member for Mwingi North, Engineer Paul Nzengu. If not in the House, member for Kibwezi East, Honorable Jessica Mbalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for according me this opportunity to contribute to the motion on policy formulation on implementation and enhancement of the EPZ programs in the country that was tabled and moved by the Honorable Beatrice Elachi. As we congratulate her, Madam Speaker, Beatrice Elachi has brought other many motions, and as a woman, we are celebrating her today in the House. Madam Speaker, before I move, I need also to join other members in wishing the women of this country a happy International Women's Day and a happy Women's Day for Kenyans. And also the women from Makueni, Kibwezi's constituency, the women who have really believed in me, and so they are also today celebrating me as a woman of this country. Madam Speaker, where you are as a speaker, have served there for 10 years. We also celebrate you because you're doing a very good job. Happy Women's Day. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, the motion, and I'm happy about it because the Honorable Elachi is asking the House to resolve, not to urge. I've been in this House for long, and there's a difference between resolving and urging. And I'm happy the motion talks about urging the national government, and of course through the Minister of Trade, Investment and Industry, to develop a policy, Madam Speaker, with the core objective, which is to, among others, address the challenge currently facing the EPZ. We have a committee on implementation, and so still, as the motions are being passed in this House, I need also to ask the committee on implementation to hasten, to ensure some of the motions that we pass and bills in this House are implemented, and Kenyans can see the good work of their representatives, the members of parliament who have spent nights and days trying to come up with ideas of seeing how Kenyans can have a better living and also to improve their standards of living. Madam Speaker, as the EPZ was thought, it was, and I want to echo one of my members of parliament who said it was a very well planned idea. As a strategist, I would say you can have a vision, an idea, and you don't achieve it. And the same way, it is just like having a dream and it doesn't come true. So the dream and the vision for EPZ was very well planned, and as it was seen by Madam Beatrice Elachi, the honorable member, that we are really facing a lot of problems and challenges. And so she's urging and asking the government to resolve this issue once and for all. We all have talked about the benefits that we have been getting from EPZ. When I was growing up, I was a girl, I used to wear jeans from EPZ. I used to wear skirts from EPZ. But as of now, we've gone down, and especially after the COVID-19, we've seen most of our youth, women, men have retrenched. And in the country, we're having a problem of employment. So even as we ask for the implementation and enhancement of the same, this program in the country, Madam Speaker, we will create more employment. We will ensure our youth have employment. We will ensure our women who will be working there, who are working there, can have something to feed the kids, to feed the children, and even to feed the neighbors. Madam Speaker, I'm not leaving the men. Our day, they are our strongest pillars. The men who also need to be employed to feed their homes. This EPZ enhancement of the program will ensure we create more employment. I come from Makueni, where we grow cotton, but we have not been able to do it well because we've lacked maybe water. We have no funds, credit, facilities that can be given to our farmers. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm sure with the announcements of this and the ministry, as called upon by the Honorable Election, we'll be able to give farmers funds and credit to ensure that we can grow cotton. If we grow cotton in Makueni and Kibwezi East constituents, specifically where we have land, but we lack water and capital, Madam Speaker, we'll be able to supply the EPZ with our raw materials, and our people will be able to earn a living. Madam Speaker, we also have sisal plantation, and this one now extends to other production areas that we need to look at as a country and ensure that we can have more money and more finances and more income in our country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the whole initial idea of the EPZ was to promote and facilitate export-oriented investment programs and create incentives for export-oriented production. And of course, in those areas that have been designated as EPZ zones, EPZ. And those are the zones that we are talking about. Madam Speaker, we will earn more foreign investment through exporting our products from the EPZ. You know what the country we are suffering from? We are borrowing from out of the country. And why can't we make money from our country by exporting? Madam Speaker, I think this is a motion that needs to be really looked at and to ensure that this is implemented, not just talked about or debated in this parliament. And it is this parliament that we make laws. It is parliament that we move and pass bills and motions. I think we need to be listened. And I'm sure every other constituency, every other county from the 47 counties, we are going to benefit from this implementation and enhancement of the EPZ program in our country. Madam Speaker, what is the way forward? The way forward is to look at the challenges that have been pinpointed, the one the members have been pinpointing, and we see how as a country we can ensure that we have taken care. For example, inadequate financing. We are asking the government through the Ministry of Trade to ensure that we have enough financing in terms of credit or cash to our people, our farmers, or our local business people, so that we can ensure that we are okay instead of going to import from out of the country. We have no problem with importation of what we cannot produce, but why can't we produce it locally? And I want to echo my fellow members of parliament who are saying, why can't we buy Kenya and we build our country? And so this should be our slogan. We should be given an opportunity, even if it was for exporting, to buy it local, to buy our products local, and to ensure that we promote some of our industries that are in our country. Another way forward that we are looking for is we can also look for the markets and ensure, especially the proposed ones, we ensure that we can have negotiations for market access, and especially near, areas like the East African community, to ensure that what we produce we can sell. And this, I'm sure the government, through the ministry, can do that. So, because we are lacking markets of the same, as a country, we must come out and ensure that we make available, through negotiations, market access for our products. We also need, Madam Speaker, to ensure that since we lack loans and credit facilities, the Minister of Trade and the government should provide the credit facilities, provide loans for our investors, for our people, our local manufacturers, to ensure that they have enough to produce and sell internationally and locally. So, Madam Speaker, this is a motion well thought, and again, I want to go on record to congratulate Madam Beatrice Elach, who has thought and...
The time is up. Member for Kandui.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also express my views on the motion that has been brought by my great sister, Beatrice Elachi. But before I do that, Madam Speaker, let me join my colleagues also in thanking and congratulating the women folk of Kenya on this very, very great day, International Women's Day. Starting with you, Madam Speaker, and the move of this particular motion, it will not have come at a better time. So for all the women of Kenya, congratulations to you. And the women in Kandui who came out very early in the morning to make me their member of parliament, I will forever remain indebted to them. And I say happy Women's Day. Madam Speaker, fast forward to the motion that is before the House. I wish to state at the outset that I support this motion entirely. When we were growing up in the early 90s, there was a clarion call for Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. Where we lost the track, I really do not know. But Madam Speaker, if we look at the so-called Asian tigers, Malaysia, for example, Singapore, we almost got independence at the same time. But they have moved from the third world to the first world, and we have still remained in the third world. Where did the rain begin beating us? My understanding is that they invested quite a lot in manufacturing and setting up cottage industries, which build up their economies, so much so that today, even the clothing we wear, we are importing from those particular countries, whom we got independence almost at the same time. I am alive to the fact that we created the Export Zones Authority Act. But what was the purpose of the Export Zones Authority Act? To promote investment and to ensure that Kenya is a friendly investment country. Can we say that for now as we speak in this particular House? I must say, Madam Speaker, that the rain began beating us somewhere. Where did the rain begin beating us? When a survey was done about the cost of doing business in Kenya, Kenya was rated as one of the countries that have the high cost of doing business. Why? Because of excessive bureaucracy in registering businesses, high and very oppressive tax regime, high cost of electricity, and all along successive governments have not been putting in a lot of funding towards making Kenya a country that is export-oriented but is import-oriented. If we carry on, we look at the surveys that are there, Kenya's exports only account for 11.2% of our gross domestic product, while the imports account for 20.2% of the gross domestic products. Do we need to keep on going with this particular trend? I would say no. What do we need to do? The issues have been identified in the motion that has been brought by our very dear sister, Beatrice Elachi. One of the problems is underfunding. As it came out in the President's speech, we have been subsidizing consumption rather than production. So moving forward, Madam Speaker, I think we need to strengthen our export processing zones and ensure we put adequate funding to fund cottage industries so that we can move from a consumption society to to a production society. And looking at the Export Promotion Centers Act, we need to expand these centers to almost all our counties, because even in our counties, what the governors are calling industrial parks are actually places where we can have cottage industries to ensure that we have job creation for our people. Madam Speaker, the cost of electricity is very, very high in this country. And I do not foresee or envisage any cottage industry that will operate without electricity. Madam Speaker, I think we need to look very, very critically at the cost of electricity in this particular country, because it is hampering the cottage industries, and it's one of the reasons that have been identified for non-performance of the export processing zones. Equally, our tax regime, if we look at just even an element like, if you look at your electricity bill, you will find around 60% of all the items on that electricity bill are basically levies. So we really need to look at how we can cut down the cost of electricity and be able to improve our export processing zones and make Kenya an investment-friendly country. The motion, as prepared by the Honorable Beatrice Elachi, seeks to urge the government, or through the Ministry of Trade, to develop a policy. I am aware before the Export Processing Zones Authority Act was passed, there must have been a policy framework. So we need maybe to relook at the policy framework that was undertaken as at that time, before the Export Processing Zones Authority Act was passed, so that we can be able to look at how best can we make it, how can we improve it, or how can we carry out effective amendments on the Export Processing Zones Authority Act, so that we can be able to have these export processing zones working, so that we can be able to have employment for our people, exports to other countries, so that we can build our foreign exchange. Madam Speaker, I will rest my remarks by indicating that there is need to clearly strengthen our agricultural sector. Because even if we have these are export processing zones, if we do not have the raw materials to feed into those export processing zones, we will be banning from both ends, because then we'll be forced to import raw materials from outside countries to bring back into our export processing zones. So we need to emphasize our agricultural production in this particular country, focus on it so that we can have sufficient raw materials that are supplied to these particular export processing centers, and have the necessary and requisite skills so that we can have goods that can compete effectively in the international market, branded Kenya. And finally, Madam Speaker, the Export Processing Zones Authority needs to pull up its socks. I have looked at the audit report for the Export Processing Zones Authority, and there are a lot that needs to be done so that it's an organization that serves the people of Kenya effectively. I rest my remarks, Madam Speaker, by supporting this motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Kajiado Central, Honorable Memusi Kanchori.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also contribute my voice to those of my colleagues in support of this very noble motion by the Honorable Beatrice Elachi, who also happens to be my constituent. And Madam Speaker, being International Women's Day, let me start by celebrating the move of this motion. And you, Madam Speaker, as we celebrate all the women in our country, our sisters, our mothers, our wives. Madam Speaker, the women are our support system. I know women want to say that they are our support system and they are the pillar of families, but let's say as men that yes, they are. You are our support system. You are the support of families, and the women of this country, Madam Speaker, are doing a great job. Let me also just in a special way celebrate the pastoralist women who, Madam Speaker, happen to be the most hardworking of women in this country. Madam Speaker, even when a drought is ravaging this country, at least 15 counties have been affected, the pastoralist counties, Madam Speaker, we are seeing resilience from pastoralist women. They continue walking hundreds of kilometers in search of water just to put food on the tables on the tables of their family. Madam Speaker, let me also just urge our county governments, especially in pastoral areas, that the idea behind devolution was to end this kind of suffering from our people. Devolution, the drafters of a constitution wanted funds to be devolved, wanted funds to go down and improve the lives of our people. But as we speak, Madam Speaker, today as we celebrate Women International Day, counties like Kajiado County, where I come from, if you look at the achievements of Kajiado County in the last 15 years, or in the last 13 years that we've had devolution, Madam Speaker, we are still way behind. Our women, our daughters, our wives are still walking hundreds of kilometers in search of a precious commodity called water. Madam Speaker, I urge those who are mandated by the people to alleviate the suffering of their people through prudent use of a lot has been said by my colleagues on this motion, and I also support the fact that unemployment is a disaster in waiting in this country. Madam Speaker, at any one point, any politician calling for a baraza, at any day of the week, you will find hundreds of young people attending these barazas. And it is not that what we are telling them in this rally is amazing. It is just idleness. Madam Speaker, as a leader in this country, I look forward to a day that a leader would call for a political rally on a weekday and would not have anybody to address because people are busy. What would bring such change to this country? It is going through such a route of coming up with policies to enhance or to bring about EPZs, not just in our constituencies, but also up to our villages. Madam Speaker, this is the only way that we will create employment. This also will help us see the gaps of our raw materials in terms of manufacturing, Madam Speaker. And this will help us cover these gaps. This will also transform our education system. Madam Speaker, what we have as an education system currently is not working for us. We have graduates with degrees, with diplomas, who are coming out of colleges, who are coming out of universities without any proper skill of doing anything. You would find a graduate who cannot even cook ugali, Madam Speaker. This, Madam Speaker, has to end in this country. But to end this, to empower our young people to have skills, is to go through the manufacturing route. The cost of doing business also, Madam Speaker, in this country is prohibiting. And as has been said by my colleagues, factors like electricity, which is a major factor of production, is highly expensive. Madam Speaker, there are countries that have gone the route that we want to go. What is wrong with us just saying, what did these people do right, and following such routes? Why are companies, why is the world manufacturing everything in China? It is because the factors of production have been made cheap. One of the factors of production that is extremely expensive in this country is not just electricity, but also land. The price of land in this country, Madam Speaker, is prohibitive to investors, Madam Speaker. All these are things that must be looked at critically for this country to progress. So, Madam Speaker, I also support and I congratulate the move of this motion, and I urge her not to leave it at that point. I urge her to push it on to a bill bring it back to this House. Let us legislate it so that it is now law that we can enforce. With those few remarks, I support Madam Speaker, and thank you for giving me this opportunity, and have a happy Women's Day, Madam Speaker. Asante.
Thank you. This chance will go to the member for Gatundu South.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this chance to contribute to this very important motion that has been brought forward by the Honorable Beatrice Alachi. Madam Speaker, first of all, from the onset, I want to say that I support this motion, and that it should even be pushed forward to a bill so that we legislate on it, as has been said by my colleague. And I note with concern that in this just ended calendar year, we finished the year at a deficit of balance of payment amounting to a whopping 948 million US dollars. Our balance of trade was standing at a negative 5.4 billion US dollars, Madam Speaker. This is way down from 1.4 in 1994, a positive 1.4 in 1994. This tells you that we are increasingly becoming a consumer economy. Madam Speaker, there is no nation that is known to ever develop from reliance on imports. Every economy that flourishes must produce its own goods and sell them to the world. As it is, Madam Speaker, we are importing even the least of commodities. We are importing toothpicks. We are importing matchboxes and such things. Very basic commodities that can be manufactured here. What that means is that employment opportunity has been given to someone else in another country. Every time you consume goods from other countries, then you have donated an opportunity for employment of our youth. So therefore, any opportunity to manufacture here locally is most welcome, Madam Speaker. But then we must also ask ourselves, when we bring the EPZs, what advantages do they bring to us? And you realize we get a lot of employment, but we also have an exemption of tax on inputs in these EPZs. That means that if we increase the EPZs and we do not produce the raw materials for these EPZs to use, then we are creating an avenue for loss of taxes in this country. Therefore, this thing must also be looked widely so that we promote our local industry and our local farming. For example, we have production of apparels in the existing EPZs like in at the river. But you find that KVDA that used to give us, Kerio Valley Development Authority, that used to support farmers to give us cotton, and even cotton that used to be produced in Mwingi and other places in Ukambani, they have died, Madam Speaker. So these things must go hand in hand. We now have an industry that is coming up creating apparel or materials or textiles from bamboo. These are things that we must promote. And these things are huge because, first of all, when you start growing bamboo, then we are helping farmers to also retain water and help our water resources and our water sources, and also to increase the production and recharging of our underground water, so that when you have drought like this, then our underground water does not get depleted. So we must look at it and also look at how to help our farmers give us raw materials. We are a tea that produces most tea in the world. We are number 3 producers of tea and number 1 exporter of tea. But our tea goes to the market not value added. We sell tea in bags of 70 kilograms, Madam Speaker. If we allow EPZs to come here so that we value add on our tea, Madam Speaker, it will mean that tea will be leaving our country in what we call the stock keeping units, SKUs, that are available at the market, so that the tea that leaves our country is available at the supermarket in any other country, the way it left this country. That means our tea last year produced 159 billion Kenya shillings. But that tea, when it got to the market, of the world was worth a whopping 670 billion Kenya shillings. All this money was lost because we do not value add. If we have this EPZ, then we put our tea there. Then we say that our tea is going to get to the market value added. Then all this additional money is left in this economy. This is how we are going to help our farmers. This is how we are going to help our youth. This is how we are going to create employment for our youth. Madam Speaker, one of the things that is so prohibitive in this country is the cost of electricity. And even as we make these EPZs, they will still find it hard to produce if our cost of electricity is still as prohibitive as it is. We must think of a way of encouraging investors to invest in our clean and green energy that also increases our base electricity, so that we do not have intermittent productions like we get during solar, using solar and wind, so that we get more reliable sources of supply, and this is going to increase our affinity to investors in this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, again, when we look at the infrastructure, our tax infrastructure in this country, it is such that you find it easier to produce in another country than to produce in this country. So I welcome this idea of manufacturing, so that even when you walk in other economies, it feels very good when you find goods produced in this country. But when we allow people to come and produce in this country and then export in other countries without the residual benefit to this country, then we are losing out, Madam Speaker. So I really support this motion, and as I sit, I ask, I wish you and all the women of this country, especially those from Gatundu South, who woke up very early and made sure that they have elected one of their own, as they would say in my language, that one that they have given birth to. And it is true, we are here to support them and to articulate their issues. And Madam Speaker, I wish you and all other women of this country a very happy Women's Day. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I would need to confirm from the women of Gatundu South what they mean by one of their own. But this opportunity I'll give to the Honorable Andrew Okwome, member for Karachuonyo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I'm seeing our problem in this country as, number one, unemployment. And number two is the trade, which really means foreign exchange, lack of foreign exchange. I thank Madam Honorable Elachi for the motion, because this motion is addressing these two issues. One, if we can increase our foreign exchange, we will be able to solve a lot of our problems. And our foreign exchange can only be increased if we manufacture and earn that foreign exchange. In manufacturing, we are told the cost of manufacturing in Kenya is prohibitive. It is so expensive that we have seen many countries, many companies migrating from Kenya to other countries, giving us unemployment, increasing the unemployment which already we are suffering from. So we need to arrest the situation. We have to do anything possible to reduce the cost of manufacturing, the cost of production. That one we have to do. My colleagues have mentioned it, and I repeat it very strongly, that electricity is one of the worst problems, the cost of electricity. It is one of the worst problems we are suffering from. Madam Speaker, I think it is even possible, and we should think along that direction, to segregate the manufacturing areas and also give them their own electricity, at almost no cost. The government can absorb that. The government has a policy of subsidizing production. If we go that way, we will be giving a chance to the manufacturers a low cost of production. They will therefore find that what they export is needed, cheap, and can increase our production. And in increasing production, we will need more raw materials for that production. I have in mind cotton industry, which is almost ailing to a point of near death. I come from a cotton growing zone, and a lot of effort has been made. Sometimes you find there is no market for cotton, and yet we buy clothes every day from other countries. If we want cotton to grow, we must ensure that we give it a market like EP said that would need it. And I therefore say that EP said is the most fertile export for production of cotton, lint, and the rest of them. So, Madam Speaker, I would wish Kenya to ensure that we do everything possible to increase our raw material productivity because these raw materials are needed by the manufacturers whose production, whatever they want to export, it's also needed because their price is competitive. You know, it is somewhat embarrassing when you remember our history within the last few years. I knew we were having a balance of trade between us and Uganda, also with Tanzania. Madam Speaker, the situation has changed. Why? We are being left behind. We were #1 in East Africa, and I see us one time becoming the last in East Africa in terms of trade. We have to do something possible. We have to do whatever is possible now so that we can arrest that downward trend. What Madam Elachi brought is actually an effort towards that end. And that's why I support what she has just brought to us for discussion. Before I end, Madam Speaker, I also line up my name in congratulating the International Women's Day with particular reference to the Kenyan women. They have given us support. We love them because they love us. And I believe we will work together with them now and in the future. But one of them is just sitting near me, and she's broadly smiling because she likes anything positive on women. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I know Honorable Fatuma Full Network wants to say that she loves you back, but let us get to hear the member for Kericho, Honorable Beatrice Kemei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance to speak to the motion brought by Honorable Beatrice Elachi. But before that, Madam Speaker, allow me to join the rest of the members in the House to wish all the women happy International Women's Day. I really want to appreciate the many women of this country, in particular starting from the First Lady, Her Excellency Rachel Ruto, and the Deputy President's wife, and coming to the legislators here. You are seated in that seat. I want to congratulate you and wish you a happy Women's Day. And all the legislators here. We have so many women who have actually made things to be the way they are. Being the homemakers, women have no tribe. These are the people who cross borders to live elsewhere, to be born elsewhere, to work elsewhere. And I say they can multitask, multi-skilled, and they do many things within no time. I want to appreciate also the women working in EPZ, where we have this motion today, and professionals, the pastors, the homemakers, legislators, the farmers, and all the women who are doing hard work to make sure that they bring food to the table. And I wouldn't stop thanking and congratulating the women of Kericho County, not forgetting those who are working in the tea estates, even when the conditions are very harsh. I appreciate and congratulate them for even staying and working hard. And I believe the women of this country will actually take their space and say no to sexual harassment and exploitation as we celebrate them today and the many other days. And for the motion of today, I've said it has come at the time, and especially today when we are celebrating the Women's Day. Madam Speaker, I say EPZ is actually a very important authority to us that was established to mainly facilitate the export-oriented investment in this country. And in particular, EPZ has done much, mainly with the creation of job opportunities to the many of our people in Kenya. And mainly this one will increase income generation. The many women working in the EPZ, I would want to say that women are very important. They pay attention even to details, and they do better when it comes to quality. They are also very efficient. So the employment opportunities that have been created by EPZ is great, and I appreciate that. EPZ is also important because skills are developed. And when we talk of the TVET, that actually we have many of our youth going to study there to earn skills. They can only have these skills developed and practiced in EPZ. And not forgetting that maybe the products from EPZ are exported to other countries, and that is where we earn foreign exchange. And EPZ also use the locally available materials. And here, we look at it like it needs to be increased, it needs to be improved, and the programs needs to be enhanced. When I say this, Madam Speaker, it is very interesting that people go to outside the country, buy clothes from Kenya, and I'm happy that with when they have it made in Kenya, it is very encouraging. But I would also wish that many of our people learn that we have these products that are exported to other countries. We only imagine we import products or very good clothes from outside. I want to tell the Kenyans we have them. So the 20% that is actually sold in the country, we need to take it seriously. However, what is lacking is marketing. What is also lacking is publicity of our products within. The way we have the agricultural shows, maybe once in a year, I wish we can also have a day when the products from EPZ are marketed and they are shown, and actually shown to many of our people in Kenya. That is when they will appreciate and they will be able to buy from within. The challenge that we have about the cost of production, which is very high, is key. And we have to really look at this seriously. Why am I saying so? When the cost of production is high, the profit margin is low. And this one will even make our investors to close the their businesses and go out. So for us to attract many of them, we need to look at it. The country, the government through the Ministry of Trade need to look at it seriously. Electricity, we have to look at the many other sources of power so that this one will go down. When it comes to water, harvesting of water and looking for the many other ways of making sure that water is available throughout, being a cost of production is also important. When we talk of raw materials, Madam Speaker, we have our cotton, and I appreciate the Kenya Kwanza government. I believe the implementation will be done where cotton being one of the crops that we grow.
Nani atakusaidia?
If I have to give you an answer to that, I wonder who's in a coma right now.
How much?